Good evening and welcome to the Westborough Select Board meeting. Being 6 p.m., I call our meeting to order here on Tuesday, April 8th. I would ask all those that are able to please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First thing on our agenda, as always, is open forum. Is anybody here for open forum? Got a bunch. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Ken Kelly, 10 Hancock Way, the convener of Westborough's newest organization. I noted that an agenda item for tonight's meeting is BWALT update and next steps. You all should have received a related email from me on Sunday evening confirming that the organization, Friends of BWALT, had its launch meeting a week ago Sunday. My related letter to the editor of the Community Advocate will appear in this Friday's issue, announcing our formation, our statement of purpose, and our initial plans. But since you wouldn't see that detail until Friday, my email to you included the full text of the letter. Our organization is ramping up related BWALT support initiatives. We look forward to partnering with town boards and staff and other organizations in town to enhance support for the initiative, not just in Westborough, but in our adjacent communities as well. Please keep the BWALT momentum going. Our mission is to help that happen. In case you missed my email, I do have hard copies of my letter with me. Do any of you need that? You're good?
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so another one here, and then we'll just go across the room.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing all of us to speak. I'm Jonathan Rappaport, 7 Brady Road, and I am the co-chair of the Westborough Democratic Town Committee. We have 2 issues we'd like to bring to the board's attention. One is regarding the town meeting articles by citizen petition. We are concerned about several aspects of these citizen petitions. One of them, for example, on employee pensions was clearly illegal. They were disregarding what the state law is on that. So we have questions about what the process is for reviewing such articles. Is there a way of not having those go forward when there clearly is illegality involved? The second issue is that one of the articles had really inflammatory and pejorative terminology in it. And I also am curious if there are procedures for dealing with that as well, whether that might include sending that article back to the petitioners, asking them to remove that language and getting new signatures to support it, or at a minimum, the town officials at some level stating they object to that terminology and letting the town know that they don't approve of it. Many of us are really tired of these frivolous amendments that add another 2 hours onto town meetings, and we're hopeful that you will consider raising the number of signatures from 10 to at least 100, if not more. I understand some of you are already having discussions about that, and I applaud your taking on that issue, and I hope that you will continue to do so. If there's any way we can help you, we'd be happy to. The second issue about the town meeting format, I know this has been discussed for at least 20 years or more that I've been in the town. And as of October this past fall, before the national election, we had over 14,000 registered voters in Westborough. Yet we consider it lucky if we have 700 or 800 people show up to town meeting. And in fact, we can't really hold more people than that, and the parking doesn't allow it. So it's a serious issue that only 5% of the town is actually acting as the legislative branch of our government, and a very small minority of people are making really major decisions about the town moving forward. So we are really interested in whether we can hold a forum, have some discussions about this, or whether the town needs to be appointing a commission or a committee to look into it, whether we have ways of altering how people could vote, maybe at a distance and not be physically present in the room, or whether we need to alter the actual form of the government for the town. So those are our issues. I've written them down on a sheet here, and I'll give you copies so you can look at the details in greater detail. I thank you again very much for your attention.
Great, thank you. I would just say stay tuned to some of this because we've had discussions. We had a retreat last week, and there's more coming in terms of some of these. So. Great. Next, Joanne.
Joanne Aramini, 7 Meadow Road. I have a statement for the public and the select board this evening. A week ago, April 1st, the planning board held a meeting. The planning director, Jenny Gingras, gave an update, which once again included inaccurate and untruthful information regarding BWALT. She stated there was collaboration with other departments in completing the 75% Section 2 design. I asked what departments because this grant was not mentioned at any department meeting, planning board meeting, or select board meeting. She also stated that this grant was not treated any differently than other grants. This too is not true. Select board meetings and planning board meetings have agenda items related to getting letters of support for grants that the town's going to submit. This 75% Section 2 design never came before any board. The lack of transparency continues, and frankly, it's appalling. I asked to speak at that meeting to address her inaccuracies, but I wasn't allowed to speak. And the reason given was that there wasn't any public hearing and that there was no open forum. And I believe that I wasn't allowed to participate because they knew what I was going to say and they didn't like what I was going to say and they don't agree with it. I understand that the open meeting law does not require a board chair to recognize the public to speak. However, the open meeting law and the Attorney General's office does encourage public transportation. That's written into the law. There is not one planning board agenda that includes an open forum, and I don't think that's right. The planning board members are elected representatives from the taxpayers. Residents have a right to question and criticize our town officials in a peaceable and orderly manner, which is what we've been doing all along on this issue. This right was reconfirmed in 2023 when the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court ruled in the case Barron versus Calenda, which occurred in the neighboring town of Southborough. I urge everybody out there to Google this and read up on it. It's Barron, B-A-R-R-O-N, versus Calenda, K-O-L-E-N-D-A. Again, I repeat for the public, we have a right to question what happens in this town, how employees do or don't do their job, and we have a right to criticize town officials. I mean, that's how our country was founded, was it not? To the select board, I know that BWALT's on the agenda tonight, thank you. I'm hoping there's going to be action on the questions I've been asking for over a month. Has the select board communicated in writing the action items from the February 25th meeting to the planning board? Has the select board received planning board written communication? What has the select board done to hold Don Byrne accountable for threatening Member Marshall and misrepresenting himself to other towns? And lastly, has the select board sent a letter to Mass Trails to rescind the grant application for the 75% Section 2 design? The select board was not informed of this application, and there are outstanding issues with the 25% design related to alternate routes. And in addition, this BWALT runs right through the treatment plant, the sewer treatment plant, which is town infrastructure, and you know that the board doesn't look upon this favorably. To me, going for the 75% is not reasonable at all, and it's wasteful of taxpayer time and money. Thank you. I'd like to give this to you so that it can become part of the public record.
Sure.
And I hope this won't get lost.
Can you give it to me then?
Yeah. That's not getting the right minute.
Can I just want to make a correction just for the public. When departments meet, those are not open meetings. And so if there are internal department meetings, it might not be visible to the public.
Yes, but there was no letter of support that was requested of the Board of Selectmen or the Planning
Which is not
Department,
required.
and that's what we have access to.
Anybody else for open forum?
Good evening, members of the board. Kevin Barry, 8 Indian Pond Road. What I'm presenting today is more a response to the planning department. I'm submitting to the select board as well, and I'd like to kind of make a public record here. Obviously, we weren't given the opportunity to respond to the comments that were made at that meeting. I timed myself, so I'm a little over 3.5 minutes, so bear with me. I did try to keep it under realm here, but I'm just going to go quickly through it. And thank you for your time. First, dear members of the board, I'm writing to address the remarks made at the April 1st Planning Board meeting by Jenny Gingras and the discussions that followed. Despite a stated intention to encourage open and constructive dialogue, we find it unacceptable that we are denied the opportunity to respond in a timely and accurate manner, particularly given that the comments directly pertain to our prior presentations, submissions, and communications. Specifically, we take strong issue with the claims regarding alleged misinterpretation and selective use of information, such as assertions that were made that records without context can be easily misinterpreted, or that bits and pieces of information were extrapolated to depict what happens behind the scenes. To clarify what I'm meaning here is I'm asking to review the ATSC recorded meeting of February 10th, 2025. I've mentioned this before. I've included the link as well as the minute marker to make it easy on you. At that meeting, the Assistant Town Planner, Kristen Bellinger, clearly referenced a Mass Trails grant application submission on February 3rd. It was a $625,000 value project with a $500,000 grant request and a 20% match of $125,000. She detailed that this match would consist of $50,000 in previously appropriated funds, complemented by CPC contributions and in-kind services for the remaining $75,000. There's no room for ambiguity. These remarks were stated unequivocally. Additionally, Select Board member Shelby Marshall, who was present, expressed concern about this being her first exposure to the grant submission. Next evening, on February 11th, at the Select Board open forum presentation, I included the reference in the minute marker. I explicitly discussed that statements that were made, and I urged to revisit that. At the Planning Board meeting, that February 11th meeting, Jenny Gingras herself was visibly present at the meeting and during this session. She literally was on the back row, and there were 3 other town officials that brought to her attention the comments that I was making. If any information was misunderstood or incorrectly presented, it should have been promptly addressed either then or shortly thereafter, not a month and a half later on April 1st. So that was February 11th, and we didn't have anything until April 1st at the Planning Board meeting. There have been 4 Select Board meetings and 3 Planning Board meetings since that meeting where it could have been addressed. It wasn't. The lack of immediate correction undermines claims of transparency and openness. Furthermore, during the Friends of BWALT launch meeting on March 30th, 2025, Kristen Bellinger disclosed altered figures of the Mass Trails grant request, now cited at $400,000, with a $100,000 town match broken down into 50-50, with some of it being previously appropriated funds, CPC funds, and then in-kind town services. Select Board member Mark Silverberg was obviously present at that and can corroborate this information. This revision, so it was 625, now all of a sudden it's 500, now it's 400. This revision, along with inconsistent calculations around matching fund percentages, where the matching funds correlate to a $500,000 project value, not 400, raises valid concerns about consistency and clarity in the communication of project finances. Once again, the concept of utilizing in-kind town services was considered valid as recently as that meeting, March 30th, yet it shifted in under 48 hours based on Jenny's statements on April 1st at the Planning Board meeting, that they will no longer utilize town services for matching funds. Finally, contrary to accusations made during last week's meeting, we're not taking it out on town staff. Last thing I know is making questions or asking questions, asking for clarifications. That's not taking out on town staff. So we have concluded exhaustive research and monitored numerous meetings to remain informed and engaged on this matter. As residents, we expect elected officials and town representatives to uphold transparency, provide accurate information, and ensure accountability in overseeing this project. We trust the board will take these concerns seriously as they represent fundamental issues of transparency, accountability, and proper governance. The lack of timely and accurate responses is unacceptable, and I urge immediate corrective actions to restore public trust in the handling of this project. Failure to address these concerns will only further erode confidence in the decision-making process with the integrity of the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Is there anyone else here for open forum? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to agenda item 2. I am going to turn this over to Vice Chair Marshall. I'm recusing myself from the discussion and leadership of this item due to this relating to relatives of mine with this property. So thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. So the agenda before us is regarding the Ellis Walker property and a purchase and sale. And I believe we have our conservation director here to present. So thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. So hopefully this is a relatively quick item, but I'm here to answer any questions that you might have regarding these agreements. So as you're all aware, during annual town meeting of 2024, sorry, we presented an article for the acquisition of the Ellis Walker property on Bowman Street, and we're now at a time where we're ready to enter into the purchase and sale agreements. We have a relatively short time frame before we're looking to close on these properties in just 4 to 6 weeks time, but important for us to get both of these purchase and sale agreements in order so that we can start doing some of our due diligence work for both survey and environmental site assessment. So the first purchase and sale agreement is related to, is between the town and the Walker Family Trust. And then the second agreement is between the town and Sudbury Valley trustees. Sudbury Valley trustees will be holding a conservation restriction on the property. And as part of that, they'll have a fee interest on the property, and we'll have a purchase and sale agreement and then execute a finalized conservation restriction. A near final draft is attached up for that conservation restriction to the purchase and sale agreement. Any questions about those documents?
Any questions from the board regarding the, let's take them one at a time. Yes.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for presenting this. I guess just a couple of questions. One is on the 2 purchase and sales agreements. I noticed that there were 2 very distant between them closing dates. One in May of 2025, and the other, I believe, is in December of 2025. Can you talk a little bit about the timeline and what this means as far as the, I'll say, the complete process of when the town will have full authority over the property?
Sure. So both purchase and sale agreements we're looking to execute tonight for the board, and then for the other parties to sign tomorrow, so that the purchase and sales will be finalized, hopefully. And then the conservation restriction with SVT, even though we're near final on the draft, we've gone through several rounds of edits. It also has to go to the state for their review of the conservation restriction. Often, I would say probably 98% of the time they make revisions. We need to incorporate those, and that review time can take anywhere from 3 to 6 months, sometimes a bit longer, depending on if there's multiple rounds of edits. So that's why we have that December 2025 date. We're hoping we're done well before then, but we just wanted to build in some time for state review.
Okay, terrific. My follow-up question is just really a housekeeping issue. On the current versions that I've seen, I'm still listed as chair, so I don't know if that has been corrected. Okay, yep. Terrific. Thank you. Just want to make sure.
Thank you.
Sean?
Yeah, I think for the benefit of those watching, if you could review, so the purchase price here in our motion mentioned $615,000. Could you review for folks here the source of those funds?
Sure. I'll kind of run through the totals and then break it down for you a little bit. So the total purchase price is the $615,000 that you mentioned, $615,000. However, so the town will be fronting that through free cash because we were receiving reimbursement through a couple of different sources. And the warrant article was written such that we could only expend that free cash upon confirmation of those other funding sources. So those have been confirmed. We were awarded the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant at 50%, so $307,500. And then the other $307,500 is a combination of Sudbury Valley trustees, which will be $200,000 for the conservation restriction. And then Walk Up Robinson will be providing $107,500 towards that total purchase. So that those three add up to $615,000. And then Walk Up Robinson will also be providing $20,000 or $25,000 in initial stewardship funds as well. And that's helping us to complete the survey and the environmental site assessment and kind of get the trails ready for the public.
So thank you very much.
Sure.
I don't have any questions, Shelby, just a couple of comments. As you know, I worked on this for the last couple of years, and it was a long process, but a fruitful process, and I just wanted to thank Jen Miller and Sudbury Valley and everybody in the town that worked on this, and particularly thank the Ellis and Walker families for their patience in what hopefully they'll find fruitful as well, but I'm sure took longer than expected, and I hope gives an example to future landowners that want to work with the town that we can make this happen. So.
Okay, I don't have any comments or questions. I would entertain a motion.
Mark, you want to make it? You go ahead. All right, I'll make it. I'll move pursuant to the vote taken under Article 20 of March 23, 2024 Annual Town Meeting to acquire for consideration of $615,000 and for conservation and passive recreation purposes the property located at 0 Bowman Street, known as the Ellis Walker property, and containing 34 acres, more or less, which property shall be under the care, custody, and control of the Conservation Commission, and further to grant a conservation restriction on said property to the Sudbury Valley Trustees Incorporated, and to approve and execute and authorize the chair to approve and execute on behalf of the Select Board any and all purchase and sale agreements with the sellers in Sudbury Valley Trustees Incorporated, the conservation restriction, and any and all acceptances, affidavits, settlement statements, and other agreements or documents necessary to effectuate the foregoing conveyances.
Can I
Question?
ask
Yeah, go
a
ahead.
question? In this case, because of the recusal by our current chair, should we be saying the town manager?
Or vice chair?
Or vice chair.
Or vice chair, but not chair.
So I'll amend that to authorize the vice chair to approve and execute.
Okay.
Second.
Sean seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
Isn't it just these?
The two purchase and sale agreements.
So it's actually the whole board that signs.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
Okay.
so instead, just remove to authorize. So
To authorize
to
the
approve
board.
and execute on any and all purchase and sale agreements with the sellers.
Amended as.
Second.
Okay. We all get to sign. Yay.
All right.
Okay. Take a vote. All in favor? Okay. 4-0, 1 recusal.
All right.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Jen. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you again to the family.
Thank you, Shelby, for that. Moving on to item 3 on our agenda is the request for the annual closing of Jasper Street on May 10th, 2025 by Nurse Farm. Christy, anything you want to?
No, this is something that we've done annually for the past few years, and they work with the police department on this as well, and we've never had an issue. So.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can we just talk about what it's for?
Yeah, and I'll just say,
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'll kind of read from our packet, and Dave, if you want to, I don't know if you want to speak or whatever, but this is what has become an annual activity associated with Westborough Unplugs Week. Nurse Farm will host activities for residents of all ages to enjoy. And due to the volume of pedestrian traffic during this event, Nurse Farm has requested that a portion of Jasper Street be temporarily closed to vehicles at the intersection of Jasper Nurse Street and the intersection of Benjamin Drive Jasper. As was mentioned, this request has the full support of the police department, and just to note that it will be again, May 10th, 2025, from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. will be the timing of that temporary road closure. David, anything that you want to speak to on this, please? You don't have to, but.
I hope for better weather.
Yeah. Perfect.
So I would move to approve the temporary road closure of Jasper Street from Nurse Street to Benjamin Drive to vehicular traffic on May 10, 2025 from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Mark. Any comments on the motion? Not? All those in favor?
Thank you very much.
5 to
Terrific.
0.
Looking
Thank
forward
you,
to
and
it.
we all will hope for better weather and warmer weather. Great. Okay, moving on to item 4, Westborough Power Choice Aggregation Plan, Operational Ladder, and Submission of Plan to the Department of Public Utility. And I think that we have Peregrine here.
Looks great. Perfect.
Excellent. So, thank you very much for having me. My name is Paul Gromer. I'm with the firm of Peregrine Energy
Can you
Group.
just
Thank you.
move that
Yep.
closer? So
Thank you. We're the consultants that help the town with their electricity aggregation program. I'm joined by one of my coworkers, Kim Pear. My goal tonight is just to give just for background, a very brief update on the program, and then to talk about 2 proposed next steps in the program. So quickly, by way of background, Westborough Power Choice is what's called the Municipal Electricity Aggregation Program, which is a form of group buying where cities and towns secure an electricity supply and make it available to their residents and businesses. When Westborough launched its program back in 2016, we were one of the early adopters of this program. It was mostly only a bunch of small towns. Since then, it's become very popular. Over 200 cities and towns, including Boston and Cambridge and Worcester. It's a very popular program now. To give you a brief history and summarize some of the benefits, it was authorized by town meeting in 2015, approved by the state later that year, launched in 2016. The benefits include stable electricity prices, which I'll illustrate in a minute, 3 new electricity choices, and more than $20 million in savings compared to the National Grid basic service price, as well as additional renewable energy, so cleaner electricity for the town. There are 3 options, as I mentioned. There's a standard, which has 20% more renewable electricity than is required. And then there's for folks who want greener electricity, there's a choice for 100% renewables, and there's also a lower cost basic option for folks who want to focus on a lower price. This slide shows some of the program results. At the top of the slide, we show a price comparison between the program, which is in red, and then the National Grid basic service price, which is in blue. And you can see 2 things from that graph. The first is that the program price has been stable, series of long-term contracts, compared to the basic service price, which by law changes every 6 months and sometimes has become quite high over the last few years. The second thing to highlight is that the program price has been lower than the basic service price almost continuously over the 10 years of the program. And that's very unusual. The goal for these programs is to be above basic service sometimes, below other times, and beat the basic service price on average. Westborough's done much better than that. The town has made a series of really great procurement decisions and provided really an exceptionally successful program. We can see in the bottom left the participants in the program. About 73% of residents of electricity accounts in town are in the program. And on the right, we have the sum of the avoided tons of CO2. And I wanted to highlight here the contributions of Sustainable Westborough, which has been a big contributor to the program and instrumental in its success. So the reason I'm here today is to talk about 2 proposed next steps for the program. The first is to amend the aggregation plan, which is the governing document for the program. And we propose 2 changes there. The first is just to update that plan. It was written 10 years ago, hasn't been updated since, and the main change would be just to meet the current regulatory requirements, which is more a matter of reorganization than anything substantive there. The second would be to authorize the town to collect a small fee if you were to decide to do that. So this would authorize the town to do it, and then you would decide later whether to actually collect the fee. I'll talk more about the fee in a second. For those of you with good memories, you may remember that the board considered this about 4 years ago now and voted to approve the collection of the fee. At that time, we did not go forward with it because at that time, you needed the amended plan to be approved by the state, and the approval period was running about 3 to 4 years. Since then, the state no longer requires approval of these, so it's a much more straightforward process. The process now is just to prepare a draft plan, hold a public comment period, and then finalize the plan after considering those comments. To talk a bit more about that fee, it's a small fee which is included in the price of electricity. Many communities collect this fee, including Boston and Worcester and Cambridge and others. The typical amount, you wouldn't be limited to this, but the typical amount is 1/10 of 1 cent per kilowatt hour, which is about 70 cents a month for a program participant, and it would generate about $80,000 per year for the town. The fees could be used only for the purposes of the program, which might include covering a portion of the cost of a staff person who works on the program or other clean energy programs or initiatives that benefit program participants. By amending the plan, as I mentioned, the town would have authorization to collect the fee. You actually decide whether or not to do it as part of entering into a contract for supply of electricity for the program. So when you see the price of electricity, at that time you make the decision, do we want to include the fee in that price or not? So this would just be the authorization to do so. The second next step is related to that, which is a new electricity supply contract for the program. Programs like this have 2 contracts. One is a consulting contract with a firm like mine to help manage the program. The other is a contract with an electricity supply company to provide the electricity for the program. The town has had 4 of these contracts over the life of the program. They're typically 2 to 3 years. The next one runs out or comes to its end at the end of November. And so in order to continue, you'd need to enter into a new contract. The process there is we do 2 rounds of bidding. One is called, we take what are called indicative bids, then we take final bids, and if the town accepts a bid, you sign a contract. The reason for the 2-step process is that when the final bids come in, they're only good for a few hours because of the volatility of the electricity market. So the town has to decide right away. It's something that happens during the business day. There's not a lot of time for contemplation. So that's why we take the indicative bids first. There's no time constraint there, so the town can consider, can decide what to do, so it's prepared for the bid day. On this last slide here, we just have a potential timeline for these 2 proposed actions. For the draft plan, there's already a draft plan has been prepared. We propose to have the comment period over the next 30 days, and then review the comments and finalize the plan in early June. From there, we'd go to the next step, which is the new supply contract, look at those indicative bids in early June. In mid-June, National Grid will announce its new basic service prices, which is what the program price is compared to. So we'd wait for that date, and then right after that, take the final bids and execute a contract. And as I said, that contract would take effect in November. So that's the end of the presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Great, thank you for that. I'll open it up to questions from the board. Mark.
I'm sorry, you had a Westborough Power Choice price graph here with a red line on it and the comparison to the National Grid basic price.
Yes.
Could you just talk a little bit about the standard and the budget price and relative to the National Grid? Is that red line includes all 3 pricing?
Oh, excellent question. So this is the standard price, which the great majority of accounts are in. So this compares the standard price to the national.
So the red line is the standard price.
Correct. So
okay,
the budget,
so the
would be even a
price
little
would be
lower.
Quite a bit lower.
Correct, and the
okay.
100% green would be a little bit higher.
Good. Anything further, Mark?
I don't think so.
Okay, Shelby?
Clarification again on the fees. So the action before the board would be for the fees to be included within our understanding or our contract as a potential, but the decision to actually charge a fee would not be determined until the late June, November timeframe. Is that or after the second round of bidding?
Yes, correct. So it would be, if I'll just flip to the timeline here to make that part clearer. So it would be to amend the plan to authorize the town to authorize the collection of the fee. So it's not allowed under your current plan. This would amend the plan to allow it. But then so that would be happening when the plan is finalized, say in early June. You make the decision whether to collect it as part of signing the supply contract, which would be happening in late June.
Okay. And I know you really just had some bullet points there around how it could be used. I don't recall that the contract spells that out further. Would that be in the legislature? Where would we, or maybe I missed it?
Yes, no, excellent question. So that would be up to the town to decide. It wouldn't be in the contract, you're correct. So the revenue would come to the town. They come in slowly. It comes in a little bit every single month.
Okay.
The town could decide how to use the funds, with the constraint being that they be for the benefit of the program. So in municipal finance terminology, these are program fees, they're not taxes. So you have to use it to benefit the program participants. But within that, you have a lot of latitude about how you might like to use it. Other towns, some use it for a staff person, as I said. Some use it to support the development of solar in the town that benefits program participants, where there could be other uses that the town could develop as well.
It would be helpful if there are towns that have utilized fees and to understand what sort of, I mean, I know you gave us a figure of $80,000 just as an example, but what sort of projects funding that has been used for in the past? So that's we don't need it right now.
Our intent, the board's not being asked to take a vote on anything tonight. We would come back to you at those 2 points in June.
Right.
But the idea would be at the point at which we would make a decision, or the board would make a decision about the adder or not, you would understand what the intent or the hope would be for those funds to be used toward. So I think that's a conversation with the sustainability coordinator, Sustainable Westborough, and then to bring that back to the board so you would understand how those would be used.
On the one hand, I mean, it's interesting for sure in terms of us offsetting our costs. At the end of the day, someone has to pay for it. At 70 cents, as the example was provided, it's a very small contribution for what kind of is not a small, which is a significant gain in my opinion. On the other hand, we have a town that's weary of fees. So, most recently stormwater, and before that, community preservation. No decision, no opinion here. Just I appreciate it being brought forward, and having been part of kind of earlier negotiations when we were working with Peregrine. I kind of forgot that was an option, to be honest with you. So it's good.
Great. Patrick or Sean?
Oh, okay. Thank you very much for the presentation. It's very thorough. I did have a couple of questions in regards to, I guess I'll start with the fees. First of all, I'm in the same boat as Vice Chair Marshall in regards to the sensitivity of the community in regards to fees right now. I certainly would be supportive at this point in regards to authorizing the board to have that authority over assessing fees, but that discussion of what the fees should be, I would look forward to that in the future. In regards to, if you go back to that graph slide for a moment.
Yes.
My question here is, great slide. There's kind of a couple things one thing that really stood out to me was the fact that so few people in the community are taking advantage of the 100% green. I did the math on my 602 kilowatt bill for the month of March. If I had gone from the standard, which I am in right now, to the green, it would have increased my bill by $15. So it's not as big of a leap to go from the 47% to the 100%. Just a note for people in the community. The one comment I'd have on this, future presentations that I think would be helpful, and Mark kind of touched on it with that red line, but also is to understand those other lines, but also you've also only indicated National Grid as the only competitor. It'd be very interesting to see whether competition is in the community as well. Because I think I don't know the data, but I suspect the data will show that those other competitors are significantly more expensive than this program. And I'd really like to see the community start to adopt this more. When I see so few people, on it overall relative to the population of the town, I think it would be helpful to get save people more money. So that's just a comment. I'd love to see more competition on that slide. You had mentioned, I don't know if we want to talk about this now. In the actual document that was the sample draft document that's sent, it talked about the outreach and what organizations. I would really like to see that when that is worked on, to include many different organizations within the town, but also, when I say organization, I'm talking about committees and whatnot under the town, but also other entities. I'm thinking of other clubs and whatnot in town that might have a vested interest in ensuring that we have a good electrical municipal program here in the community. So, and not only that, it'll also propagate the information to get more adoption for those other programs. So there's really my only comments instead of any real questions. So thank you again.
Very good. And if I may clarify one point in response. So to clarify my little table down there in the bottom left, those are electricity accounts, which translate more to households than population. So it is, if we look at the total number of electricity accounts, it's about 73%, and it's actually a higher percentage for residential accounts, because this would include the business accounts as well, many of which are well served by the competitive market. But as you said, residential customers generally are not, and so do particularly well on this program.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification.
Sean?
Yeah, no, thank you. This has been a very successful program for Westborough. Thank you very much for coming today. I think I'm also initially reluctant about the fee, but willing to learn more. But looking forward to those discussions over the next couple of months as we finalize this. Thank you very much.
Okay. The final comment, maybe an outlier here. So, I think having that fee option, and we wanted to adopt it, or the ability to adopt it before, I think we should definitely consider that this time. I think with that option, when we start looking at pricing, and if the pricing with that still is saving the residents money in the program, and as you said on that, we've been tremendously lucky. This is not what we expected. It's nice to see it, but I don't think people should expect to see it. As you stated, it's really about on average over time, and with those spikes, there are times that National Grid will go down, but it's actually, I think the best piece is that it allows you to budget a lot better in terms of what your rate and not be impacted by those spikes. But what I would say is, if we see the numbers and they're favorable, on my side, I would be in favor of putting it in there, because I think thinking about ways we can use it, I want to hear that, but I have some ideas in my mind of, I think, ways we could use it. I think that could lower the tax burden on residents, which would be helpful through something that participate that at 70 cents per month or $8.40 per year is minimal, but they'll have that impact savings on tax bill. So I think it's something we should talk about. I do like us having the flexibility to do it, and then I look forward to those discussions going forward.
Yeah, so I'm just concerned about the 27% that don't opt in, and what kind of outreach we're doing to, because I feel like there's a lot of predatory kind of stuff. My electricity's cheaper than the other guys, and I'm worried that people have accidentally opted out. And are we doing some targeting to try and get those people to understand their options? And then as far as the fee goes, you had said we're not authorized, or we're not. I mean, are we voting on nothing tonight?
Nothing.
Because I thought you were asking us to authorize. Okay, so not even the draft plan. We don't have to do anything.
Nope.
Okay, I was a little confused by
In
that.
June, the final, on the timeline slide, there were 2 dates in June.
Okay. That's
Early
all.
June and late June.
Okay.
And I would just say that I think that as we've rolled out new contracts, we've done a great job of, and I can't quantify that, of talking about this program through a number of different, meetings at the senior center. I know we talk about it at the Environmental Action Fair. We've talked about it on the 01581. We've had it in newsletters from the town manager's office, et cetera, et cetera. Postings down at the front, down in the lobby. The library doesn't mean that everyone really understands that the predatory piece is a real issue, and certainly I'm very proud that we have 73%, but would love to see that really bump up. And I love the idea of sharing that and engaging some of our civic organizations to make them aware and kind of create a greater comfort level. It's a great suggestion, Patrick.
If I can just go back to, I think what I heard though, that 73% is the whole town, so that includes businesses. Do we know what the number is of just residential users? Because it sounded like you said that it's much higher than that 73%.
Yes, so I don't know, I can follow up with the exact number, I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's higher than the 73, so it might be, say, the high 70s. There's definitely
Room to
many
get more.
customers who are not. A great majority are part of the program, but there are definitely a good number that are not as well,
Yeah.
which is typical for, for all communities.
Yep. And I think we can, work to educate the businesses as well. As you said, some of the larger businesses probably have their own negotiating ability, and they will stay with that versus going with the town thing. But a lot of smaller businesses will be helpful. So, Patrick?
Just want to add one comment or two comments. One is I'd love to see this slide if you are able to expand it with those other competitors. I think that it's a powerful message. If we can put this up on the town website, I think it would help educate people on that piece of it. And then I think, Ian, to touch on, I think where your head was also just those fees. If the board so chooses to do that in the future, I would like to also better understand, like, what cost avoidance, is there any cost avoidance opportunity when we look at something like this for the town as well as the residents? So
Yeah, I think that will come out, as I heard it,
yeah,
for us
that's
to
what I'm
make that
hoping
final
for.
decision in June.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I think it's hard to speak on the fee until we know what the price is.
Correct.
And how much we're saving the consumer, like you said.
Yep.
But also, I'd like to have a better handle on where we're going to use that money.
Yep.
So.
And just, I think, just to reiterate what was said earlier, the last time we wanted to put the right to charge the fee, not that we were going to do it, but it got bogged down because the state had to approve it and it wasn't getting approved, so we didn't put it in. This time where that's changed, I think we should allow ourselves that flexibility by putting that into the plan, and then we can make the decision as we see the prices as to whether, and what to Patrick's point, what
Right.
those potential uses and other cost savings would be on the town and resident side before we implement.
Good to have options.
Yes, good to have options. Anything further? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. Okay, moving forward, item 5 on our agenda is a site plan review for 220 Turnpike Road and McCarty Engineering. Evening.
Good evening, everyone. Patrick McCarty, McCarty Engineering. Thank you for having me in tonight. Yes, no?
Might just take a minute.
Not liking my... Oh,
there
there
we
we go. All right.
Just when
Little delay.
Just when we thought we were lost.
Thank you. So again, Patrick McCarty, McCarty Engineering, here tonight on behalf of Everrise. Jim Ball and Dan are here with me this evening. They're proposing to construct a new office building for themselves at 220 Turnpike Road. I'm sure all of you are familiar that currently at 161 Milk, they're in the process of renovating the old skating rink, building a new building for Mark Johnson's company, MA Restoration, and this site extended all the way up to Route 9. It was kind of backwards L-shaped. So they subdivided the parcel in half. Mark kept the lower half. Jim has purchased the upper half, and we'll be going before Planning Board next week, Conservation Commission actually in about 4 minutes when I run across the street. But we're here to present the project to you. It's 2 new 7,400 square foot buildings. The middle building on the plan is the one that would be initially constructed for Everrise Financial's offices that are currently on Oak Street. A 3,000 square foot garage building would also be constructed at phase 1, and then they're planning a future building either for their growth or a friendly business that they would welcome to their site. new driveway connection all the way through from Milk Street to Route 9, a new entrance right in, right out onto Route 9 that's already thankfully been approved by MassDOT as part of the original permitting effort. They've already worked with the town to grant an easement along the eastern border for the Bewalt Trail. And that's really it. Pretty straightforward. Two really nice modern office buildings and a garage building, and a business that's been in town for many years, building a new facility in town, so a win for Westborough.
Just to orient us, this,
Oh, Route
if you
9's
can,
along the top.
Route 9's on the top, right?
Yep, sorry.
Okay, and the other piece for Mass Restoration,
From,
that's
yeah,
down below
Mark's
there.
project is down here on the bottom.
Correct, okay. Thank you. Questions, comments? Who wants to start? Mark?
Sure you want me to start?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You might knock out all of ours.
Exactly. Take 'em all.
Hold on, let me get my notebook
You
ready.
have, no, I don't have that much. You have this labeled as a storage building on the site plan. Is it, you said it's a garage though?
Yes, great. It'll have garage doors, so it's storage and garage.
So one-story garage?
Yes.
I didn't see a mock-up of that.
Yes,
So,
one-story garage.
How many vehicles?
4 doors.
4 doors. So Jim's cars.
Yes.
Oh, so not a parking garage, just
Not a parking garage,
I
just
got it.
an actual drive-in, an overgrown residential garage.
Got it.
And so the intention is to split this into 2 lots, but I see on your table on the right that there's a minimum frontage requirement. Are you looking to get a waiver on that, or?
No, it conforms.
But if you build a second building, it's gonna be 2 separately taxed lots, so I'm confused how that works.
It's kind of, it's already a little contrived because Mark wanted to have a sign out at Route 9 for his business,
Right.
which is why there's this kind of P-shaped extension up to Route 9. So that way that's tied to Mark's lot, so his sign can be up here at the street. And then we kind of took a similar approach where we have the frontage and then a finger of land that reaches back to the rear lot, so that creates the frontage
I
for
think
that.
I see the dimensions, it's just hard to read on this.
Yeah, this
Okay.
is a graphical plan. On the full plan
Okay,
set,
so each of those 3 lots, including Mark's, is gonna have the minimum frontage, but
Mark's
they're
has
gonna
frontage
share
on
the-
Milk Street, but he's also has frontage on Route 9 so that he can have a sign on Route 9. Although now with the zoning amendment, we could request a special permit from the planning board to share a sign.
Oh, well,
So-
that was my next question.
Yeah.
Are they sharing the sign, or are they?
Right now, it's set up for individual, so Mark has his sign for his businesses down below, and then Jim would have a sign for his businesses and whoever the future building is, and so now it gets really busy. So we've been speaking with Mark about working together on a special permit application so we can have one common sign at Route 9 and one common sign down at Milk Street that would list all the businesses. But we haven't submitted that special permit application yet.
All right, and could you just go over any EV charging or any of that?
Yes, we're showing, excuse me, we're showing 2 EV, actual installed EV chargers at each building with conduits for future EV.
But not in the garage?
No, that's a good question that I should ask Jim.
Okay, that's fine. I don't think I have anything else.
Okay. So anything, it sounds like the EV charging might be one that we asked for the planning board?
I don't think 2 per, I mean, how many employees are we talking per building?
So we have 1 unit with 2 heads, so that would be able to charge 4 cars when
Right.
both buildings are there.
Okay, but how many employees are we?
The future building, we don't know how many employees.
And current?
We don't know who the
the
tenant
first
is.
building, do you know?
The current one could be in the 20 range.
20, and then some customers at the yeah, it's not the type of business that's gonna need a lot of, maybe down the road, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, just trying to see if there's anything that we want to put towards to the planning board as questions or comments.
I don't
Okay.
see anything from me.
Okay. Shelby.
So I love the idea, if it's possible, to combine signs. I think that just creates less busyness on Route 9 in particular, as well as more aesthetically pleasing on Milk Street. I know that's not up for discussion today, but I guess I'll just have the opportunity, so I'll share those thoughts. I'm curious, is it the first building, the Route 9 site that's being
No,
developed first?
the one further back.
Oh, further back. Okay.
So we
thank
would
you.
leave the Route 9, the one closest to Route 9 for future development.
Okay. And that is just zone commercial, is that correct?
Highway business, yeah.
Highway business. Okay. All right.
And I have on another slide, I have what the building looks like.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. I think the public always sort of enjoys the actual picture.
It's a great looking building there.
While you're pulling that up, can you talk about traffic flow? So how that flows both to and from Route 9 and Milk Street?
Yes. So
after you've pulled that up, sorry.
Oh, great. All right.
They take a little while to load.
Can I just make one more comment? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
On the B-Walt easement,
Yes.
I know from other applicants that that's kind of expensive to get. Patrick doesn't do that for free to develop those plans and put that into this application. And I just want to say thank you to Patrick's client for spending the money to incorporate that in this application, because it's going to save us some money down the road. By us, I mean the town.
Okay, I apologize. I don't have the color rendering in this folder.
Okay.
But it's a modern flat roof.
We have
very
a picture of
attractive.
it. So,
Yeah. And then as far as traffic, so there's a common access and utility easement that goes all the way from Milk Street right around all the way to Route 9. So traffic would have a right, if they're traveling east on Route 9, they would have a right turn in to this, and they'd be able to exit right, continue east onto that, and then they'd be able to come down to Milk Street and again take a right or a left and a right to kind of zigzag
So
under the bridge. Yeah,
It's
so
accessible by both properties.
both properties have a common easement
Common
that
easement.
runs all the way through both properties.
Okay. Okay. And I see some plantings and some green coloring.
Yes.
I would imagine this is probably a pretty, for construction, it will be cleared, but there will be plantings.
Yes, so there's wetlands on both the eastern boundary,
Okay.
which is a bordering vegetated wetland. It's at the toe of a slope, very clearly defined. It's actually kind of that cattail area you can see as you're driving Route 9 eastbound.
Yep.
On the western boundary, there's an isolated vegetated wetland, which is federally jurisdictional, not state jurisdictional, although Westborough's bylaw takes jurisdiction over it. Those were delineated by Waterman as part of Mark Johnson's project, so we're sticking with that delineation. The site was actually completely stripped bare back when Fafford owned it. We have looked at some historical aerial photos, and there wasn't a tree left on the site. But as it grew back in, it did create an isolated vegetated wetland that's fed from the Route 9 drainage.
Okay.
So we're proposing to fill a section of wetland here and then replicate a portion there, replicate a portion there, and then actually go into the wetland, because if you went up and looked at it, it doesn't look like your typical wetland.
Yep.
It's pretty sparse and pine, and so we're going to put wetland seed and plantings in that to kind of bolster the existing wetland to get to our 1.5 replication. And then we have landscaping all around the entrances and the parking lots. There's not much we can do here, because that's a 2-to-1 slope, and that's also the future B-Walt trail. So anything we put there would get ripped out.
Yep. Okay. My other question was, I think I see, but I just want to make sure, because of the slope and the elevation from Mark's property and then any abutters, there is underground filtration right within the
Yes,
impervious surface.
We have we went out and did soil testing, witnessed by the DPW engineering division. We have 4 separate underground infiltration systems proposed that'll pick up the rooftop and the pavement for all of the buildings and parking areas that allow recharge. And fortunately, it's good soils. You know, we've been lucky in Westborough between Cold Harbor and Boston Lawnmower, and here it's all that nice gravel.
Yeah.
So it's great for stormwater design. But it does have an overflow to the existing drainage system that goes down and out to
Great.
Milk Street.
Okay, thank you. No more questions for me.
Great. Sean, Patrick?
No questions.
Sean?
Yeah, just one quick one. Yeah, it was a really good looking project. The second building, so then that would be the one that's closer to the road,
Correct.
right? So you're bringing the plans forward. I guess, how long does that project stay open? Is it in
So
perpetuity?
conservation's good for 3 years. You can request extensions. But the plan would be to build all of the utilities because they're all being fed up from Milk Street. So we're extending the water up through and looping it to the existing water main in Route 9. We're bringing sewer up in that direction. Basically, everything feeds from Milk Street up. So we would construct the entrance, the through road, all of the parking, and the first 2 buildings, and then this would just be a grass kind of pad-ready level area until such time that Jim either leases it or decides to build it for his own expansion. So we would try to maintain the permits open. Hopefully something happens in that 3-year window, or we would have to come back and permit that little bit of work that would be remaining if we did in fact close out the first permits.
Thank you.
Just kind of a follow-up to what Shelby said. I know that when Mark, and when I say Mark, Marco, I forget his last name, Johnson, from the MA Restoration Company that's building now, when they came in, we had some neighbors from Carlton Gardens come in because they've had some flooding issues, and they were very sensitive. And I think the planning board at the time, and I presume the department is aware of the need to keep any runoff on the site.
Yes.
So I do think we can put it in our comments, but I do think they're aware of that.
And, obviously we're required to notify abutters. I think we might have set the record for certified mailings between the residential complexes that surround us. So, I don't know, I think it was 97. No, it had to be more than that. It was almost $1,000 in certified mailings. So it was probably 200 certified mailings went out. So they'll all be well aware of what we're proposing.
I just had a couple follow-on questions. I think great project. Echo the thanks on the B-Walt piece there. Assuming with this going in that there was already a prior allotment. I mean, we're still in a moratorium right now. This is
Yes.
covered.
Yes. We've had those discussions with Lisa Lane at engineering and with Mark. I mean, yes, I guess my understanding is the warrant article passed, still has to be ratified, and then there's an allotment, and so it's, to quote Lisa, it's a first come, first served basis. So fortunately for this, 7,400 square feet of office isn't a huge flow generator. We're talking 565 gallons per day, which is what, a 5-bedroom house equivalent. So we're working through that. We proposed it as connecting to sewer, in the hopes that by the time we get through the Planning Board and Conservation Commission process, that it'll have been ratified and we'll be able to apply for assignment of flow.
Perfect.
If not, we'd have to go back and design a septic system, but as I just said, fortunately we have really good soils and a good depth of groundwater, so we could do it, but it would likely cost the future building.
Yep.
So honestly, the hope is to get an assignment of flow.
Perfect. It would be assignment for both buildings.
Correct.
At that time. Okay, perfect. Thank you. The last piece, can you just, you mentioned something, I didn't follow it, but with the entrance onto Route 9, Mass DOT, but the entrance and exit off of Route 9.
Yes.
Is that improvements that are happening there, or
Yes,
can you
so
just talk to that a little bit?
It's new. So there's an existing driveway now that was constructed back when it was Fafford's property years and years ago. But Waterman, through the design process for Mark's project, applied to Mass DOT for an access permit. and they arrived at the design that's here at the top of the plan. So there's a new granite curb that comes in where our curb line will meet that, and then another granite curb here, and then a raised kind of directional granite curb island so that it funnels traffic in and out.
Perfect.
And getting through Mass DOT lately has been no small feat, so it's nice that that's accomplished already and that we had those curb lines to tie into with our proposed curb line.
Perfect. Thank you. Nothing further? Okay, your last chance.
Sorry.
No.
I was, you confused me now because in the submission was a soil suitability assessment for on-site sewage. So that is purely.
Oh, those are just the log. I mean, there's no log for when you do stormwater testing. So we use that same log to log the soils.
Okay.
It's a
so
DEP,
that is,
it's a DEP form.
Okay.
So we're not proposing septic at this time.
Okay. Well, that's what confused me because it
Yes.
referenced on-site sewage disposal. So.
Excited about the project.
Yep. No, I think it's great.
Excellent.
Were there any comments or for the planning board on this?
I think it's just the signs, to the extent that that's relevant, that they be combined. And was there anything on EV chargers? You were good on that.
Yeah. No.
No.
Okay.
That's it.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
Right
you.
across the street now.
Great.
All right.
Good luck.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, moving forward. Item 6, request to exercise town's purchase option for 3112 Townsend Boulevard. And I think this is from the Affordable Housing Trust.
I think Alan is here.
Ellen is here.
I don't recognize that gentleman. No. Mr. Edinburgh, please.
Stay away.
Good evening. Alan Edinburgh, 8 Nash Street, trustee on the Westborough Affordable Housing Trust. The request before you is a pretty standard pro forma request. We're asking that the select board delegate its authority to exercise the town's right of refusal for the purchase of the property. The Housing Trust has voted to only take that action should the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities not be able to locate and secure an eligible buyer within the standard 90-day window and any extension they may grant. On the property, it has the most recent and current affordability deed restriction, which says that if EOHLC can't find an eligible buyer, the affordability restriction remains, but they can sell to an ineligible buyer. So we don't lose the SHI count, but it can pull a unit out of availability to an eligible family for a generation, depending on how long someone decides to live there. The challenge with EOHLC continuing to extend the sell cycle in these 60-day extensions is the seller wants to move. And not being able to close on the sale means they may not be able to close on their future purchase. It can affect their ability to get a mortgage for their future purchase, et cetera. So the plan for the trust is if HLC can't secure an eligible buyer within the window, the trust would acquire the property and immediately turn around and put it back on the market.
Perfect. So what that means is it's that right of first refusal. You'll exercise it, purchase it,
Yeah.
basically, so they can move on and then put
And
it
then
back
we
out.
would turn
so
it
you can
around.
continue to hold it until you find that affordable
Yeah,
buyer.
and just give it more time. The property's already being marketed. We don't expect there's going to be a problem finding an eligible household for the property, but there's always the risk of a last-minute issue with mortgage rates and lock-ins or unexpected events where even if there is someone who could be able to sign the purchase and sale agreement, that something happens and they can't at the last minute.
Perfect. Okay,
And just,
questions?
yeah, just for the public's benefit, I think we read it as part of the agenda item, but just to be clear, this is at 3112 Townsend Boulevard. This is over off of Smith Valve Parkway and Fisher Street, near the residences at Westborough Station in kind of the transit-oriented village.
Yes.
Just for point of reference.
Yep.
No, I support this. So we've done this before.
Yep.
Appreciate the Affordable Housing Trust being aware of and these opportunities and to preserve affordable housing in the town. So thanks.
Other questions? Mark?
I don't have a question, but I just, for people who are interested in this unit and may qualify, it is still available on a first come, first served basis.
It's lottery.
It says first come, first serve on the website, on the application. Its sale price or list price is $203,100. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,000 square feet. Again, I'm not trying to market this, but I would rather have somebody watching this who's interested and may qualify. The income limits are listed there in the application. There's asset limits. I think you have to be a first-time home buyer, but there may be some exceptions to that. So could be wrong.
Perfect. Any comments, questions?
This isn't any different than when this has been requested of us by the Affordable Housing Trust previously?
Correct.
Yep, same thing.
So,
I think it's great. I think, Alan, to your point, if we didn't grant this, we would still keep it on our SHI inventory, but really doing two things here. It's keeping it on the SHI inventory, but really basically preserving this for someone that qualifies for affordable to be able to have an affordable unit to purchase. So I think it satisfies both of those. Okay, any other questions, or is there a motion?
Alan, would you like to make the motion?
I'm not allowed.
So I would move that the trust, as an agent of the town, exercise the town's purchase option for the property at 3112 Townsend Boulevard, described as Unit 190, Assessor ID 18-5-190, per paragraph 4, Section 3 of the Location Initiative Program Affordable Housing Deed Rider, dated May 8, 2015. A recorded book in 50266 on page 1 by the Worcester Registry of Deeds, provided the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, EOHLC, is unable to locate and select an eligible purchaser that enters into a purchase and sale agreement within 90 days of EOHLC's receipt of the conveyance notice or during any authorized extension period.
Seconded.
Okay, seconded by Board Member Welch. Any further questions or comments? Not, all those in favor? It's 5-0, 5 being present.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you. Okay, next on our agenda is the Boston Worcester Airline Trail update and next steps. You moved too quickly. I think just to summarize, as this gets set up, this has been a discussion, as folks know, it's been through discussion open forum for us to put on the agenda because of our focus on town meeting, getting through this. This was the time we put it on, so look forward to the discussion this evening. So thank you for being here too.
So we just have a brief presentation just to update. I don't know what this is. Just to provide an update. This was the right time to provide an update related to the wastewater treatment plant. We've had 2 meetings with the wastewater treatment plant. Very successful, very productive. Both sides feel that way. And so several town staff have attended, as well as members of the plant. Member Welch has been there as well, and then engineers on both sides. So at our first meeting with the wastewater treatment plant board, we talked about the proposed route, which you can see up here is the one that's surrounded in green. That was the original proposed route per the feasibility study. There was a concern raised about future expansion of the plant, which we all know would be the priority of the town. So working with them, we overlaid their expansion plans with the feasibility study plans. And then we had brought this plan to our second meeting, which proposed the alternate route, which is this yellow here. In further discussion sort of about how the entire parcel would be used, we talked about the possibility of moving the trail completely behind the solar field here. And sorry, it's not drawn on. We didn't have that plan, but that was really the wastewater treatment plant board was happy with that discussion. There was discussion about how we might do it, how it might include moving the fence, because you can see down here there's a fence that surrounds the solar field. And so certainly that would take some additional design work to be done. Jenny, as our planning director, is working with GM2 to get a quote on what that additional design work might cost, to see if we have any funds available. If not, it could potentially be funded by a grant, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the presentation. This slide here gives next steps for this portion of the BWALT. So essentially looking for a quote, if not being able to be done through current funding, would look for a grant. And the second piece of it is that representatives from the town, as well as the wastewater treatment plant, would meet with representatives from Kearsarge. So Kearsarge is the entity that has the lease for the solar field. Wanting to talk to them about the different options for the trail and highlighting any concerns that they might have or any impacts that they predict, so that we can take care of those concerns as well. So that's specific to the wastewater treatment plant. I don't know if you have any questions or if Patrick wants to add anything.
Yeah, just add, I will also just say that I found the 2 meetings that Christy references being very productive. And I think I'd like to just thank Mike Stanton, who's the chair of the wastewater treatment plant, and also the board members who were able to represent from Shrewsbury as well. Very good conversations with GM2 as well as all the parties that were represented. If you can go back to the slide that shows the, yeah, that's probably the best one. So one of the questions that I asked during the meeting was to make sure that we understood what the alternatives were. In the first slide, you saw the green to the yellow, right? And that was kind of the thinking.
Yeah.
If you go back, the green to the yellow, right? And I asked the question about, well, is there an opportunity to go up and around north, up towards Route 9, to get up past that? And our conservation director indicated that, in fact, we can't go that way because it would incur. We're already at the threshold of 5,000 square feet of wetlands that would be touched here, I guess. And I'm not going to, I don't know the technical terms, but apparently if we go that way, we would exceed that, which would trigger approvals beyond the town conservation commission, would require the state. So that really wasn't a viable avenue. So then we talked about how can we get down and around the solar field as an option. I'll just point out that I believe it's called the clarifier, which is that kind of oval shape on the left-hand side. Think of it as like a racetrack. What they're talking about doing is adding more lanes to it, which will make it larger and larger. And that's why you see those concentric rings on the other slide. The other thing that they're talking about doing in regards to their expansion is in that center where you have those 5 circles, they're talking about possibly removing the lower road that goes around there and adding another, I don't know if that's called the oxidizer or what it's called, but 2 more of those circles in that area as well. So again, to allow for that increase in growth. In regards to the solar field, there was a lot of discussion as well about whether or not any of the solar arrays could be moved. So for example, if we move the trail down below to the south of the arrays, could we take a row of arrays and move it up to where the original route was planned? The reason why is because there is a bit of a drop off there at the back, and there's also that brown area at the very bottom there is open space to allow no trees, so that the solar field gets the proper lighting. So there was a discussion about that, and this is all what I'm talking about is really to show you the creativity and the discussion that was being had by the boards on what our opportunities were here. So I think we landed in a good place in regards to the constraints that you see before us, and I will say it was made very clear to the wastewater treatment board that we do firmly believe that the expansion is the #1 priority as far as future consideration for the property and BWALT in that space as well.
Okay, thanks. Did you have a question, Shelby?
Can you go back to the first slide with the colors, the green? And so I know this is to be discussed because those are the solar fields. So how would the trail from where it's yellow and orange combined right now, how would it stay on that path and then theoretically, I know theoretically because we don't have the engineers, kind of follow the existing yellow and then drop down, or is it proposed to be a different entry point in that area?
So you're asking about the yellow trail, the proposed new alignment?
Yeah, so I guess let me let me ask maybe a better way. Is the original green at this point effectively, since you guys have been at the meetings, kind of off the table, given expansion desires?
Yeah, we would prioritize the expansion over.
Okay, so
trail,
that's the
right?
yellow.
Yep, to get
Right.
down to the yellow.
The yellow's the alternative proposed alignment, depending on what GM2 comes back with.
Okay, okay. So being that yellow is sort of the new reality, if you will, then the path would follow that line and then potentially drop right around the solar, or would it?
Correct. It would go. Next
Would it more triangulate is what I was trying to say, I
Yeah.
guess.
So it would.
Would it go down, would not stick on that?
Yep. So if you can follow the mouse,
Yep.
it would come down here
Yep.
and then drop down and then go around the solar and then meet back up here.
Yep.
To finish. Meeting back up to about
To
here.
where it was originally coming
Right.
out,
Right.
roughly. Okay.
So they get the same question. So it will still follow part of that yellow as opposed to redoing that yellow altogether and kind of going
Okay.
cross-country
Yeah.
director. Is that still to be determined by, if you go back to this prior, maybe, I don't know if that was the same
Yeah,
question. you
yeah,
had.
no, it
So right
was.
now, kind of where the yellow starts coming off that
Mhm.
orange, because the question was, would there be a plan that instead of following that yellow that's contemplated now, that it would potentially come down prior,
Right.
but
No,
actually where the yellow
like-
and orange meet?
Yeah, like forget the
Starting
yellow,
there.
just more on an
Like
angle.
that, yes.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so we had discussion about, so we had discussion about that, but I think, well, actually, I should let you answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think GM2 really needs to evaluate that area. There's multiple things to take into consideration, including elevations, wetlands, floodplain, things like that.
Okay.
And that's what they would be doing. You know, if we moved forward with evaluating this alternative, we would ask them to evaluate it in that way. Look at the wetlands, look at the floodplain, the elevations, and see what's feasible.
And one of the things that that came up during the discussion was also, being that this is a multi-use trail, was obviously bikes and perhaps even electrified bikes, going 20 miles per hour down this. Could this support the turning radiuses that would be required for that? And the gentleman from GM2, I don't remember his name, but he indicated, obviously they haven't done the work yet, but he indicated that he felt within that space that that shouldn't be an issue to be able to create the proper turning radiuses to support it.
Can you go back to the other picture, the
Big picture?
the big picture? So I see the white line right above your cursor, so that delineates the property line there. The property line then wraps around the solar fields and goes up toward, is that a stream or is that a road, the black thing?
That's the Assabet River.
That would be a little bit of a stream, okay.
Yeah.
And so.
That's where all the wastewater goes back into.
So just to
Clean wastewater.
your left, my right, is that the property line for this wastewater treatment plant?
Correct. It's on the other side.
The other side of the
Right.
Assabet, okay. Okay. And I know you're gonna talk about the Mass Trails grant, the 75%. I guess precursor question, is that intended to be used for this 75, is the question to GM2 to work on the alternate route? Would it be inclusive of that, or is this now an additional ask to GM2?
It wasn't anticipated, but given our discussions about the expansion of the plant and wanting to support that as a community, then we would need to use funding for it. So it depending on how much it costs, we might have funds available, or we might need to use that grant.
Okay, and when you say funds available from where?
So in the existing contract, we would evaluate whether we can replace some of the things we're asking them to do with evaluating this alternative instead. But it's hard to say without knowing what the cost is and whether.
Right, so they're
we
gonna
have that
work up a
room.
quote of what their work would cost. And then I know you're gonna get to it because it's further down in the slides in our packet, because there's still outstanding work to be done with GM2 regarding 25% design. So I'll hold that question, because, but it's, I would like to make sure we sort of tie these together to the extent that we understand kind of the whole picture as well as how it breaks out in parts. My initial non-engineering lens, so first of all, I'm thrilled that we're having conversations with wastewater treatment plant. I think that's a great step forward for the town as a whole for obvious reasons. And just through you, Mr. Chair, I would love for them as a board to come and present updates to us as a board and thus to the community. So at some point in the future, not on this trail,
Not on
but
this trail,
expansion, right?
on the
Yep.
expansion,
My hesitation in all of this work is this very important question about expansion and putting all of our, putting a lot of effort, I should say, not all, putting a lot of effort around routes in this area when expansion plans are unknown. And in my opinion, expansion of the wastewater treatment plant is a much higher priority than any trail. And so, again, I'm not saying the work shouldn't be done, but I think we need to be very cautious and cognizant of timing here. And I would like, in terms of how far we go and how quickly we go with any work done by GM2 before we hear anything more definitive from the wastewater treatment plant expansion discussions.
So just so to be clear, so the AECOM, who is the engineer for the wastewater treatment plant, has also been attending these meetings, and everyone at the table felt comfortable that if we were able to move around the solar field, that we would accommodate any future expansion that they would anticipate. Certainly, you know, I think we said 40 years in the future, you know, they potentially, but they would have to remove the whole solar field. It would be a much bigger project, and it's not what they're anticipating in the current discussion about expansion.
Thank you.
Yeah, there were lengthy conversations about that.
Okay,
so.
great, thanks.
Any other questions on this piece?
Not on this piece.
Okay.
I guess just
Yep.
something quick. So if expansion comes up and I see the circles here and where it would extend to, they wouldn't need any of this as sort of area for construction. They would be able to get around.
Yeah, that's also shown on there. There's the potential grading limits as well.
Okay.
So
That's what
that was
represents.
reflected. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Oh, now I see the yellow circles
Yeah, the big-
of those
yeah.
concentric.
Yes.
I missed that. I thought that was just like some engineering thing. Okay, duh. Okay. Got it.
Okay,
Gotta
anything
get
else
that
on this one?
magnifying glass out, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, let's move forward.
Okay, so as you know, we're also working with GM2 as part of their contract to evaluate an alternative for Meadow Road. So this yellow, or I'll start with the green, this green here is approximately where the current plan is showing the trail. And so it would include sharrows on the road, which are just essentially a print of a picture of a bicycle on the road showing bicyclists to ride on the road. There is an existing sidewalk on Meadow Road. It's not, it doesn't completely follow the road all the way to Milk Street, but pedestrians could use that also. So that's the current plan from the feasibility study. So we're evaluating two other things. The first one is to actually cut across to the back of where West Meadow Plaza is. There's actually kind of a worn path back there already that I don't know if pedestrians use it to access the lot, but it would go there and then go behind the West Meadow Plaza just to orient you. I think this is JP's
Nope,
in
Papa
this
Gino's,
area.
Yep.
Yep, right in this area. And then this is where Charlotte Klein Dance Studios was, and then it would follow all the way behind there and then cross Milk Street. So there would be a crossing here. So we are working with GM2 right now to evaluate that option. One of the things that we're doing is also talking to the property owners. There's actually two property owners over there. Ocean State owns this property here. where it would partially go on to, and then there's a separate owner that owns this parcel here. So we felt that it was important to begin those conversations with those property owners before we had our public meeting and talked about the plans in more detail, because we wanted to understand even the possibility of easements, which would be needed there. We're also evaluating the possibility of sidewalk improvements potentially on Meadow Road. The sidewalk there is a bit deteriorated, so we're just looking at that also as an option. But we do plan to have a public information meeting in late spring, maybe early summer, depending on the how soon we're able to finish these discussions with the property owners.
Yeah.
Yep, Patrick?
If you just go back to there a second, I just have a process question. When we're talking about two alternatives here, how and who, how do we decide? How does that happen?
I think that that's the question that both the select board and the planning board have been discussing. You'll hear, and this board is aware, that the public will hear, excuse me, in my town manager report that we're actually going to start a development team meeting, which is an internal meeting with the chairs of both the select board and planning board, with the purpose of improving communication and alignment. And so those discussions will begin, and then we'll come back into a public forum where there'll be a final decision. Because as you know, when the planning board had their meeting, they supported the select board moving forward with the BWALT. Select board had your meeting. There was discussion about it being, that on a temporary basis, you put forward a plan, understanding that we were still working to identify sort of who would make those type of decisions. So I expect that those discussions will run in parallel with the discussions that the planning department's having with the property owners, and so ultimately, we'll figure out who we want to.
At the end of the day, though, in this scenario, does the select board or does the planning board have the authority to approve alternative 1 or alternative 2?
That's what I was just
We don't know.
speaking to.
We don't know.
We don't
Okay.
have that's the discussion we have to come to.
So it'll be a discussion decided by the two boards or between this and the development team?
Yeah, it'll be discussion had in the development team, but it'll be decided between the two boards.
Just like the intent of the January 16th
Yes.
meeting was to identify that, and that didn't happen. And then there were 2 subsequent meetings that were done separately with 2 different votes. So now we'll continue those conversations.
Yeah, we're kind of at a...
Yeah, no, I get it. That's why I wanted to.
But it also will be informed by many things. So the public meeting, public comments, certainly the cost of the 2 different routes, as well as the ability to obtain easements. So I think there's a lot of information to be had.
Will there be a public safety aspect to this as well? I mean, Jenny, I don't know when we're talking with, the landowner of Meadow Plaza there, and then, obviously we've got the road down Meadow Road. Is there a safety assessment that gets done during the separate process to give that as a I would think that would be a significant weight to any future decision.
Yeah, we would look to our consultant to advise us on that. Part of what they're looking at and what they'll give us information on is the cost, the feasibility based on easements and what is needed for that, which also can affect the cost, and the safety. So there's many different factors, but we would also look for their recommendation on that.
Okay, thank you.
Mark?
Yeah, so I know I've spoken to you, Jenny, on this quite a few times, and I would encourage you, while you're discussing easement acquisition with those 2 landowners in this picture, I don't really love the yellow option. I think it convolutes the path even more. But I also think the green option could be a temporary option until we solve that intersection, and it could be 20 years from now, but someday we're going to have that intersection with Milk Street and Route 9 redone, right? And if you see where that green line starts, that's where the BWALT goes to Mark Johnson's property. you could just go right straight across through West Meadow Plaza and pick up the end of Meadow Road. And I think if the Lyman Street Plaza has already agreed to build the B-Walt right through their plaza, presumably that'll be done long before Milk Street and Route 9 gets solved. And we know there's that big hump there, right? That's terrible. But, I think we all agree that someday that's going to have to be improved. And we're going to have to get across Milk Street somehow with the path. I'd rather see that crossing be at the West Meadow Plaza than down by Meadow Road. So again, I'm looking at this as, okay, this is the next phase, but it's not possibly not the final iteration. And we all know how expensive that solution will be at Milk Street. It's going to have to be a MassWorks grant or some type of state tip project or something. But I think if we're talking about easements with those owners, we should open that discussion, because I think that would be a better option to run it right through West Meadow Plaza if possible. Again, we're in New England. We're going to have a lot of zigs and zags on this route. It's not going to be, a highway. But to me, it makes a lot more sense going right through there. And, again, I think probably whatever solution will be there will probably have a light or some kind so people can get out of West Meadow Plaza easier. So just my 2 cents on, again, it could be 20 years, could be 50 years, but it might be a better option.
Great. Okay. Other comments, questions on this one?
Can I? So, Mark, are you suggesting that, like, those easement discussions be centered on the proposed yellow, or?
I don't actually like the proposed yellow. I think, because I think this is a temporary solution, I'd rather just see it go down to Sharrow's on Meadow Road. Mm-hmm. And then if we can move forward any type of solution. I know we've got a lot of tip projects and we're asking the state for a lot of money, but that's fine with me. Let's ask them for some more. So.
Yeah. Side note: I was in Providence this past weekend, and in a pretty busy area of College Hill, and they have Sharrows all over the place, and I was like, oh my God, Westborough needs more. I'm not saying specifically here, but side note, would love to see those on more of our roads. It definitely slows down traffic, and to me, it's pretty cheap to put some paint down. So anyway, and designates us as a bike-friendly community. Yeah, I mean, I'm interested certainly in understanding this work of GM2 with the alternative. I don't necessarily have a strong opinion about the alternative one as it's just roughly laid out here.
I think we just wanted to show you, because there's been a lot of conversation and a lot of comments made, and so we just wanted to give you the update on the wastewater treatment plant and also this piece.
Still more to come.
But we're not asking you to give us your preferred alignment, because there's a lot more information to be.
Yeah, but on that note, I'm just curious. I mean, if we've got GM2 going off and doing the work here and talking with the landowner up there, and I don't know what the sense of this board is right now, but if this board had the sense of we support or we don't like one or the other, should we not be telling you now so that we don't waste the time of GM2 going off and doing that work and having those conversations?
Well, our understanding was that this project was needing additional public engagement, and so I think you would want the comments from that public engagement session that Jenny mentioned.
I mean, I feel like the way we left the January 16th or whatever the date was meeting was, and actually I should say that well before that meeting, the one we had in the fall, when this was kind of the re-kickoff, if you will, this was a commitment to bring forward these. So I do think we need to follow through on that. I'm
all for more public engagement on this. Absolutely. This project has lacked it, in my opinion. So absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think lacked it, but not for the effort of trying. in it, particularly recently. So people have to want to engage, and it has to be a two-way street, pun intended, since we're talking about. On my, Jenny, I just, and Christy, I know, I've heard Don Burns say multiple times in meetings that yellow portion behind is not, feasible per old discussions. I don't know. I wasn't part of those conversations. I trust the work that GM2 is going to do as a professional resource working with the town. I would just ask that those old discussions be, that we understand kind of what that context is. Maybe there is a conversation, a one-to-one conversation with Don, just to say, what are you referencing? I'm not asking him for him to be invited to any meetings. That's not what I'm saying. Just that there seems to be some history there. And to Patrick's point, if we're asking for the alternatives and that was a commitment from a prior meeting, I also don't want to be trying to do something that was tried before in some regard, and we're just layering on more expense.
Yep.
So, if it's not feasible at all, then we should not be pursuing an alternative. Like, I'd rather GM2 say it's not going to work for these 5 reasons, and now we're looking at, okay, what are the other options? Is all I'm saying.
Quite frankly, I'm surprised we're even that option's even on the table, because I drove back there the other day, and there is, waste receptacles back there. I mean, I can imagine Harvey's pickup trucks coming back there and picking up dumpsters, all that kind of stuff. There's not a lot of room back in that area. So, I mean, I don't know where the property lines actually live, but I don't know Don's research that was done. I don't know any of that. Just looking at it personally, it looks like a very difficult area.
So just to add to that, I'm sorry.
No, can I just ask then, in terms of the work of GM2, since this was a continuation of the fall presentation and a commitment from that, how is the work of GM2 being funded now to bring forward the work in late spring, early summer?
Well, we did have funding available through the Mass Trails grant that we had. We actually were able to utilize some of that existing funding from the last Mass Trails grant. I'm trying to remember what we changed in there. I think it was that originally their contract had talked about more engagement with the engineering consultant for Section 1, but we didn't need that. So they were able to move those funds to fund this alternative. And then there are additional funds that were approved at a town meeting, I believe in, I want to say 2017 or 2018, that were able to go towards this in part.
Okay. So I think what would be really helpful as the development team does its work, right, as well as this particular section, is an accounting, for lack of a better way to say, of and we did this on another project, I just can't think of what it was, but here are the town meeting kind of warrants, here's what
we did it on this project in our last meeting. Yeah.
Yep.
But this information was, I felt like what Jenny just said feels like it's new to me, or maybe that just needs to be updated.
We did it on, we did an accounting of all of the articles, but to your point, it was a few years ago, so any money that's been spent,
I think that's it. Let's just not lose sight of that, because I think it just helps to. Yep, that's fine. You have it up.
Yeah, I mean the funding for design construction was part of the January 16th. I mean it's there. I don't know. Maybe there's more to be updated there. My concern about this right now is, yes, GM2 was asked to do something at that meeting. How was it decided to go this yellow route? Right, to Mark's point, why was there some sort of early assessment that said that is the most feasible route versus going in front of the buildings or across the parking lot? I don't have the information that says how was that decision made, and why are we locked into this?
I don't think anybody's locked in, Pat.
Okay.
I would say that my instinct on this is that we're going behind people's houses instead of down a street in front of their houses, and people's expectation of privacy in their backyard is greater than their expectation of privacy in their front yard, and that's why I would want to stick to Meadow Road, at least as a temporary solution. But again, I think input, public feedback, all of that is important.
I would respectfully disagree, Mark. I think that the traffic congestion, the narrowness of the roads, turning, sidewalks, buses, made that green portion on Meadow Road, particularly as you get closer to Milk Street, very much an area of concern that was discussed. Not so much the portion that connects, I think that's Indian Meadow, right? Is that Indian Meadow?
Yes. where the
Indian
current
Pond, thank you.
alignment, yeah.
So I think it was less that than it was the Meadow Road piece that was very much safety, congestion, turning radius in and out. So, but I think, Patrick, to your point, it's like, why there? Why not someplace else?
I can speak to that
Yeah.
if you want. Because it was the least impact, the consultant thought, to the property. As you probably all know, that shopping plaza is a little messy. And to go through the middle of it, like Mark was suggesting, well, that's, you know, a great idea because of the Colangelo's property with 18 Lyman. It's not set up for that right now. And if you went across, there's parking spaces and there's other factors that would come into play. And then the other thing is the crossing. So where we have the yellow here for crossing, we also have to take into account sightline visibility coming down from Milk Street. There was actually previously a crosswalk around this area that MassDOT recently moved to be near Meadow Road. So that's a basic reason of why it was looked at. It made the most sense at the time. Certainly there's other things we could possibly evaluate.
Yeah, I'm very curious on the safety assessment here because as I look at that small yellow segment that comes across Milk Street there, that is right next to, I mean, obviously we can't see it, but it's right next to the exit, which is the right-hand turn exit out of that plaza, which is, if anybody, you know, you're driving your car, that right-hand turn is a blind turn, right? And you have to be looking for that person who's in that crosswalk. And so to me, that's a safety hazard right there. And I don't think that property owner is going to want to necessarily close that exit as a result of this as well. So I'm looking forward to that conversation.
Yeah, I think we're getting down into the weeds on something that wasn't prepared here. I think that's coming up for public discussion at a later time. I understand where you're going there. I would say, maybe I'm getting the weeds, but I would not propose anything going through that. I mean, I don't know how many times I've seen cars coming up the wrong side of that piece. I just saw 2 cars come out the entrance onto Milk Street. I mean, and that's just me going by one day. I can't imagine what happens in that. It's just not, it's poorly designed. It's been there for a long time, but I wouldn't even consider trying to put pedestrians or bicycles through that thing right now because no one knows how it works in there. But
yeah, just a comment.
Sure.
So if I look at this, right, if you try and go further south beyond what we have here, you're really going all the way to Maynard Street before there's any opportunity to go over. So there's really nothing south of this because then you're dramatically changing. No, I'm still talking. Okay. Dramatically changing the entire path here. So, and as stated earlier, you can't go north of this closer to Route 9. That's not viable. So you really, this is the spot that it sort of has to happen until Mark says something differently. But so I appreciate them trying to do this with providing us an alternative, although that cutback there looks, I mean, I don't know if there's anything they can do about that section there to try and get this, maybe, you know, round that off a little bit. I think that looks like it's going to be very difficult to navigate. And then, of course, I agree with the other thoughts that folks have here. But Mark, if you want to take the rest of my time, I abdicate to you.
No, I'll take this offline. I mean, there is a Treetop Park does have a long strip of land that comes out on Milk Street further south, but it would require moving the whole route down Milk Street. So I'll take this offline. It's just something I, looked at before as a potential alternative route. So.
And you can cut me off, but I think that this conversation is exactly sort of where we need to be because you know, again, I'm just looking at a roadmap here. You know, we have portion of it meaning improvements being done on Otis Street. We have a portion of work being done by the Safe Routes to School being done on Fisher Street. You know, yes, we have a feasibility study that shows us this, which is north of all of what I'm talking about, but, you know, coming down Otis, connecting to Fisher, using Sharrows, maybe Maynard, maybe staying on Fisher, gets you right into the downtown with some work, albeit, and certainly safety concerns and all of that. My concern is, are we too wed to the feasibility study and trying to create, I don't know, square peg round hole is the only thing I can think of at the moment, versus taking a step back and saying, what are the objectives of this in terms of connectivity to different economic centers, to areas of economic justice, etc. And are there alternatives that can get us there? We know this is going to take a long time to do. You know, most of us probably won't be around by that time, but I just feel like we're spending a lot of time on Section 2 because we have to, and we may be avoiding some other lower hanging fruit that could create improved safe mobility around town on things other than cars.
Shelby, I couldn't agree with you more.
Can I say something? You know, certainly the feasibility study was a project that was done a while ago, and you know, respectfully, we're, you know, look forward to getting direction from whichever board is taking ownership of this project. But I will say that one thing that I think we need to consider is that even though this project has been going on since 2012, this is the first time that we've really gotten this far into the design. So having been part of this for several years, not since 2012, the idea and the memo that you all, well, that most of you received, was that we would approach this in a segmented approach, and that we would attempt to fund design to 25%, and then further design, and then construction. And we would do that solely through grant funding, which certainly could sometimes require a match, but it was through grant funding, and that's how we proposed it through the capital plan. So phase one was, or segment one, was simple because it was just part of our MassWorks grant, and that work has just been going forward. But segment two, this is really the first time where we've tried to move forward with that plan to design the entire segment. So I understand that it feels like it's getting tricky, but I think that we anticipated this because we knew that we were going to have to be working with property owners, you know, to obtain easements, that we were going to have to get sort of to further design than what was conceptually laid out in the feasibility study. So again, if we decide that we want to throw out the feasibility study and do something different, that's fine. But I just want to say that I don't think that this was unanticipated. It's just the first time that we've gone through it.
Mark?
Yeah, so I kind of disagree with you in some sense, although I do think there are some low-hanging fruit that we can look at to improve bikeability on other streets. But I've made this point before, those efforts are not mutually exclusive. We just need to make sure they're not mutually expensive. And if there are two different types of trails, right? There's Sharrows or side paths, or the path along Fisher Street is completely different than Minuteman Bikeway, or what this is proposed to be, which is a much safer alternative and a much different experience than sharing the street with cars. So I think this is a worthwhile effort. Do we, it can be a long-term effort. It's going to be a long-term effort, but I don't think we should just shelve this or table it because it doesn't go exactly where we, would like it to. I mean, I made this point before. We're in New England. We're not going to tear things down to put this trail through. We've got to go around stuff, and this trail has a route that's feasible. It's doable. It's adaptable. It's not the final product, right? but we have made a lot of progress on this. Easement acquisitions from many, many landowners already. I don't think we should scrap this. I think we need to continue this, but we need to be cognizant of other opportunities, and I'd be happy to pursue those.
Ian, if I can.
Yep.
So just Mark, on your last point about number of easement activities, I believe the number that was shared with us in the feasibility study, it lists that there were 52 easements that were projected to be required. And I think that at the time in January, we'd secured 4 or 5 of those total on the total project across all phases of it. The reason why I'm in agreement with Shelby is we're getting much better at public involvement in these discussions. You know, you look at the current projects between the library and the community center, those levels of public engagement, the Rotary redesign, the conversations that had there where we had the engineers come with us and put drawings on tables and let us move things around. It was wonderful. You know, we had 100 people show up and do that. That level of public engagement has never happened with this project. I personally would love to see this section of the route completely rerouted towards where Shelby's going, because it really brings you in to the downtown area. It connects you into a much more general area. It helps with more neighborhoods. It helps with commuter traffic in a better way, because people commuting up and down from the center of town, where a large portion of our town is, more people are renters in that area of town. So I think there is a conversation that needs to be had. I get it. This is water that's pretty much already under the bridge. So I'm waiting for these conversations to happen about.
Pat, if the
about
railroad
this.
ever shuts down completely, we have a perfect spot to put it. But until that happens, right, I don't know where you expect it to go, right?
I think it was just as discussed. Go down
But
Otis Street.
again, it's a
hop
different
on.
experience.
It's a different experience.
I get it. I'm a user of these types
People
of things.
use that street today. I mean, it's just.
I would argue that going down Otis Street and down Fisher Street, which are both beautiful roads, is not vastly different than going in the backside of a wastewater treatment plant.
I wouldn't call Fisher Street a beautiful road, but
Well, it
for
could be.
riding a bike on.
It could be beautified.
I hope it is a beautiful road. I would love to see it improved with this, but it's
And certainly
we
Maynard
need to
Street
do it.
is.
I can't wait to see what happens with that shared streets grant. But
Sean.
Yeah, so I mean, we're not going to solve this tonight. I think there was an action for us to take here tonight, and we haven't gotten to that yet. I don't know if we want to do that.
Yep. Thanks. Let's move forward.
So this describes the Mass Trails grant that we applied for, and GM2 also assisted us with the writing the grant because it was part of their contract agreement. Excuse me. So the total project value that we identified was $500,000. The grant amount that we requested from Mass Trails is $400,000, and then the matching amount that we would be required to put forth is $100,000. I actually had a meeting with the finance director today and found that there were some restrictions on articles that I previously thought that could be part of or used towards the matching funds, but because of those restrictions, it's $35,000 that we would use from existing funds, and then we would be looking to request from the Community Preservation Committee $65,000.
Jenny, when are we expected to hear about the grant award?
It's our next slide.
Oh.
Well, not. I guess what we wanted to say is, well, I guess this is what the tasks would include, so I can let Jenny speak to that. But ultimately, what we're asking for, because of the comments that have been made, is for the board to continue to support the grant that's been applied for. The application process is not different than other grants. Sometimes we come like Jen Miller did with the MVP grant and ask the board for a letter of support. That is not always the case. We apply for cybersecurity grants, fiber grant, all kinds of grants. And so that this project moved forward without a letter of support from the board, which is not atypical. And so we are asking, just based on public comments, that the board support this grant having been applied for, and that we will find out in the fall, October, you said?
Yeah, about October.
And then once we find that out, we would have to execute a grant agreement, which typically I would do without further authorization, but we could come back at that time to have the discussion, and that would also obviously follow all of the other discussion about the project leading up to it. But, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I can go over what the grant covered if you would like.
Great.
That'd be great.
Let's ask one quick question. Is there a requirement of the grant to stay materially within the context of the feasibility study and the current path?
It's in the application it shows our work leading up to the grant, so it does help us that is the alignment that, you know, was done based on all of the backgrounds that happened to get to that point.
Okay, thank you.
So the grant application was to first address and respond to MassDOT 25% comment. So as said before, we plan to put this on the tip. So the construction would be funded by MassDOT, and it would be a MassDOT project. So that process starts very early on. So we would need to submit to MassDOT the 25% design that we would come up with, or that we have come up with, but if there's an alternative, we would have to alter that. They would submit comments back, and GM2 would then respond. We would move forward to get to the 75% design at that point. But in between that, we would want GM2 to also do additional public engagement events with us, so other public meetings, and site walks at the different areas just to engage the direct abutters. So really making sure that our public engagement happens in force during that time. Then we would have the 75% design submission, which also includes working with MassDOT, because we're designing this to MassDOT standards, which are the highest standards. It also includes environmental permitting, so it needs to go through Conservation Commission, for example. And then we get to the 100% design, which also includes the design of the bridge that would go across the Assabet. And then, like I had mentioned during that time, submission to MassDOT to be bid as part of a TIP project. So that's everything that it would include.
Questions?
Yes, so just for clarification, this is sort of what I'm reading here is a general list of major kind of milestones or points that would be covered as part of Section 2, but aren't specific to the 75% grant application, right? Because we're mixing a lot of things in here. This is just sort of an overview, right? What this slide.
Yeah,
I mean, so address and respond to MassDOT 25% comments. We just spent a lot of, that's the alternate route and how that impacts anything under jurisdiction of MassDOT, right?
You're asking if this grant application, so the 400,000 plus 100,000 covers all of this?
Right.
Yes.
Yes, it does.
It covers 100% design?
Yes, to get to 100% design and submit to MassDOT to be on the tip.
Okay, sorry, I just don't understand. I mean, I'm taking at your word here, so I don't understand how a 75% design submission gets us to 100% design. I know 75 plus 25 is 100, I get that, including the proposed bridge. So that's awesome if it does.
Are you asking how the amount covers that?
No. If you're saying everything under the 500,000 that was on the prior slide covers this, that's new information to me, and good information.
That is what GM2 provided to us.
Okay.
They wrote a majority of the grant with input from town staff, and they provided the breakdown of the cost.
So Jenny, there's a process, like you go from 25% design, then you go to 75% design, and then you end up at 100% design. So what you're saying is they're going to go through that process. There'll be steps in between the 75% and the 100%, but eventually they'll get to the 100%. That's why I think you're confused, because you're like, well, why does it say 75% here and 100% here?
Well, I guess, just to put clarity around this, if for 500,000 we would accomplish all these bullet points on here. That's what I'm hearing you say.
That is what GM2 submitted.
That is what
yes.
GM2 is saying. Thank you. That answers my question.
So it gets to the point that we could bid it as a TIP project for Mass DOT to cover the construction of the trail.
Correct.
And this is just section 2.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Which going back to what Christy said, it's been a plan all along to do it in sections
Yep.
because that's how you can get funding. And to keep it at funding that we're not asking taxpayers to fund it.
Just, well,
I mean,
just to be
certainly
clear.
there's
well,
I
there's
shouldn't say that.
matches.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, so my question is, the 65,000 from the Community Preservation Fund would need to go to town meeting in the fall? Or
Yes.
spring, or when?
The grant award happens in the fall, so
That's the community preservation decision that will
Yeah.
go to town meeting.
Probably in March.
CPC needs to weigh in.
So it would be at fall town meeting, you would be asking the, so first you'd go to Community Preservation Committee, ask for their support, and then go to town meeting and ask for their support to spend that 65 on the match.
Right. They would have a public hearing or a public meeting at
Right.
the Community Preservation Committee, and then they would make that recommendation to town meeting, and then town meeting would vote on it.
So we wouldn't even really have decision on the 65, it would be town meeting.
Jenny, do you know
Well,
also?
no, but we are a decision on our support of it.
Well, right, and we would have to put it on the warrant.
Right.
Jenny, my understanding is also CPC actually has to go through a process with the state to get approval on the use of that
No.
fund as well?
No,
As far
town
as
CPA funds.
No, I get that. My understanding is they have to go through a application process when they choose to use funds for a certain purpose.
The applicants go through a process, but as long as it meets the criteria of those three segments
Right.
that it
One
governs
of
the
those three
CPC, there's not an approval with the state.
Okay.
Yeah, they actually changed the CPA to allow for use for trails like this. so-
Right. No, I know it's
yeah.
allowed use. I just
Yeah.
okay.
I just timing, so I understand. So, because we said before, it's sometime in the fall. So, I mean, we're saying we'll go to fall town meeting. I guess my question is, we wouldn't go to town meeting asking for matching funds until we found out if we were awarded the grant.
Correct.
Correct. So if the grant came out, we find out we get the grant on whatever date. I don't know what town meeting date is in the fall. I should, but say our town meeting is October 20th. We found on the 19th that we were awarded the grant. We don't have a warrant article out there to go. I mean, to me, it sounds like, from a timing perspective, it's either going to be, it could be fall if things could award early. It could be spring. It's supposed to go
Well,
there.
it could be a contingent article, right? I mean, the CPC could, going down a rabbit hole here, could grant contingent upon award of, and the town meeting article could be approval based on the
Yep.
granting of the Mass Trails grant. Just like we did for the Ellis Walker property.
Yep.
There was a contingency, right? So,
Correct. I guess what I'm trying to get to is, maybe to be clear, what you're asking us to vote on tonight is support for the filing of that grant.
yes.
It's not support of acceptance of that grant, or is
No, that would be the further discussion.
Yeah, the,
I think that just given the strategy that we've always discussed about how we would fund this project, this is exactly following that in terms of applying for grants. Certainly, if there was an issue with getting the matching funds, that would create a completely different issue. But I do think that there's a lot of discussion to be had between now and October, November timeframe. And in the meantime, I think that we're potentially impacting ourselves negatively if we pull the application, which is what you're being asked to do.
well, just to be clear, there was a resident request to pull the application. This board, this board did not make that request.
Right, that's
Yeah,
what I said, what
yeah.
you're being asked to do.
Yeah. So it was a singular request to do, or a couple of people requesting that. This board has not suggested that, and certainly the planning board hasn't suggested
Right.
that. Okay.
Right.
okay?
So I guess just a couple things in terms of the next steps slide here. So back to an earlier comment, I would like to, before I would, so it would have been, I think, more appropriate for the select Board to be asked to grant its support as part of the application. I think that's a miss, and I think it has to be acknowledged that the application was submitted. You know, this project is under our responsibility right now, and let's just not let's make sure that doesn't happen again. That's what I would ask, okay? Secondly, it would be helpful to have, much like we've seen with other projects, community center, library as two examples, the timeline kind of that we were just discussing, like a visual timeline for this section and the grant kind of as overlays of each other. That would be a helpful visual. I would also like to see updated kind of the budgetary numbers, if you will, in using the slides from our January meeting. And then Jenny, sounds like you have more updated information from our finance director before I can fully support a letter supporting this grant. I'd like to see the timeline, have a better sense of this is great, and the budget, and then I'd be more inclined to, be supportive of the grant.
So can I, Mark? I agree with Shelby that this board should have been informed on the grant application, and I think we as a board should look at some type of grant policy where, again, I don't think we need to authorize every grant application, but when a grant requires a match of this substance, I think there should be a threshold of some kind, I'm not sure what that is, but I just want to open that discussion at some point because we're expected to finance this without knowing without being involved in the application up front, and that's, I think, where it's a hard pill to swallow.
I would agree with you, Mark, on that one.
Anything else? Questions?
I would just make one other comment. I don't have an issue with you applying for this grant and the manner in which you did it. I think it is the way it's always been done. I think and Ms. Aramini and Mr. Barry have been advocating for their views on this project as they should, but we are reacting to that, right? And we are being sensitive to that, and now we are looking to lay blame that something happened that shouldn't have happened, and that is not the case. I agree, we do probably need a policy on how this should be done, and so that way it'll happen in the manner we want going forward, but there was nothing done incorrectly in the way this was applied for, and thank you for bringing this forward.
So I, with all due respect, Sean, I disagree. I wholeheartedly disagree. I fully support the work of every town department leader. Jenny has really been a champion, in particular on BWALT, and Kristen working with ATSC as a tangent to this project. So awesome job, awesome work. You're kind of taking this and shepherding it and bringing it to this point. We haven't had that leadership in the past, and so I'm very appreciative of that. I also think things happen. People make mistakes. I'm not asking anyone to kind of be like, oh my God, let me put myself out here and I did something terrible. That's not what I'm saying. But when this board owns a project, has responsibility for it, we need to be involved in the process. And it's a lesson learned. Let's not discuss it again, please, because I'm tired of discussing it. But I think that there's a way to say congratulations and let's improve the process next time.
Yeah, I agree with that. And wasn't trying to point any fingers at lay any blame. I think we as a board should look at, why this happened, how do we need a policy in the future, and let's just move past it. Like you said, Shelby, I think it's a good project. I think it was a great effort to get this grant application in. I would like to apply for more grants. I like grants. They're good, usually. Yeah.
And I think part of the challenge for this, Jenny, in fairness to you, and Christy and I have had long conversations about this. We talked about this at our retreat last week, is that we do need to get clarity. Ian already referenced it between planning board and select board, right? You report to the planning board, you don't report to us. You know, this project is ours. So the development team meetings, I couldn't be happier that those are taking place, because that is that big picture look at related projects, not the BWALT. I think that will help get everyone on the same page. So thank you.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor the point. I actually tend to agree with Sean on this one, because I don't know who owns this project right now. We have supported it. We put it out there. We had the meeting. I think, in our view, as the planning board said no. I mean, they didn't take a vote at the meeting. We were there. We had a vote to move forward. So lessons learned. We're not going to solve it here. I think we can make changes going forward. I'm going to look to the board. I'm not making motion. I am supportive of moving forward. I think what's on here is, and why I asked the question, is that I think from what I'm seeing that there'll be more public engagement. We've all said that as a board all along, is public engagement is important here. Communication is important. We need to improve that. We can always improve that. We can always improve public engagement. We're going to take the steps in with our new development team meetings to figure this thing out once and for all, so everyone has clarity. Because I can tell you right now, I still don't have clarity of who truly owns what and whatever here. And I appreciate the two of you preparing and coming in front of us from, two different reporting lines that we have, and I appreciate that. And we're getting better and we're learning more. I appreciate the requests, Shelby, that you made as well in terms of the numbers. I think those are takeaways and timelines. So I'm going to leave it to the board as to whether they want to make a motion, whether they want to wait till another meeting when we see those requests. But just my 2 cents.
Ian, just a point of order, if I can make a point of order.
Sure.
In our notes, there was a BWALT agenda item statements. I don't know who they were prepared by, but I thought they were very appropriate. I don't know if those were intended to be read, but I think that they should be read.
That's later on the agenda, yes.
Okay, but I didn't know if that was before or after the motion to support this. I didn't, so I just wanted to make sure that was,
Yep.
Okay, fine, thank you.
Can I just wrap up kind of what we're talking about? So I understand the request for the additional information, and we're happy to provide that. I guess I would just say that it is clear within the grant application that these are proposed matching funds. There's no commitment on our part in term yet, but there would be with the execution of the grant agreement. So I guess, again, I would urge the board to be supportive of the application, understanding that before we make any commitments, there would be further discussion. So, and then I just want to make one more note on this slide, that I think it's really important. We were very, very clear at the wastewater treatment plant meeting that when segment 2 is discussed in relation to the alternate route, the wastewater treatment plant route will not look different. And I think I just want to be really clear about that, because as we mentioned, that there's additional work to be done there. So the treatment plant board representatives, I think, are very clear on that. I don't want to go to these meetings and have people feel like we're not following through with what we're saying. It's not going to look different for this meeting, because this meeting will happen before that additional work is done.
Understood.
I think it would be, just as a suggested enhancement to this, I know it would be after the fact that we've seen this presentation, to actually kind of draw in that proposed alternate route around there, just so everyone is very clear as to this is the one we're talking about.
Okay.
Is there the request here is that we support the grant application. I leave it to.
I'll move to support the application for the Mass Trails Grant for Segment 2, and consistent with the February 25th, 2025 vote, request that if awarded, the town manager return to the select board for approval to execute any grant documents.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
Can I ask
just
a clarifying question to Christy or Jenny? Is there a time sensitivity to our approval at this point, given the grant has already been submitted?
Not
Or
related,
is it
not related to the grant timeline? No.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, it's moved and seconded. All those in favor of the motion? And opposed? So it's 4-1.
Yeah, and I just want to say the reason why I'm opposing is just I would like some additional information, and I don't see that sense of urgency of voting for it now, so.
I still think your requests are fine. I think if we could have those for our next meeting, if that works.
Yep.
That'd be great. Thanks. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So in closing on this agenda item, we've talked about a number of things, updates and next steps. I did want to address public comments that have been made and just kind of aligns with this agenda item. So as folks know, the BWALT has been the topic of many comments made at open forum in front of the select board. The agenda item tonight was hopefully responsive to some of those comments, and that has been determined by me as the chair in discussion with the town manager that this agenda was appropriately timed for this meeting. A reminder that select board open forum is an opportunity for residents to provide comments to the board. However, it is the policy of the board not to engage in discussion, but rather note the comments for consideration on a future agenda or other action by town staff, as we've discussed at prior meetings. It is the role of the chair to determine the agenda items. The chair often prioritizes items based on deadlines, alignment with board goals, and guiding documents, as well as the board's regular work as determined by statute and/or charter. Some items that are raised in open forum do not rise to the level of being agenda items, but are responded to through other channels. Open forum is not intended to be an opportunity for maligning staff. On behalf of the board, we do not agree with comments made recently that assert that the town staff is lying or intentionally choosing not to be transparent. I want to be clear, though, that this is not denying anybody the right to make comments, criticize, etc. But I think that it is important that we, as a board, assert that we do not agree with some comments about lying or intentionally choosing not to be transparent. As we've talked about a lot, the town is always working, and this board is working to improve communication and public engagement, and will continue to do so around this project and all other projects. And hopefully folks are hearing that tonight with the discussion that's gone well longer, but I think very important for us to do and have that discussion. Finally, town staff work many hours in service to the town and to the select board, as well as the boards and committees they appoint. And should not have an expectation that staff report on every meeting and every action they take throughout the day. Rather, it is the expectation and responsibility of staff to bring issues and information to these boards as appropriate to inform or when action is needed. And that is our expectation of our, what I think is excellent town staff. So thank you. Okay, I'll move us on to our next agenda item, which is item 8, which is an easement agreement for the Town Hall Alley between 32 and 34 West Main Street.
So, as Ian remembers, for several years we've been in discussions with our neighbors about the easements as they exist in the alleyway, but also along the back of the building next door in the parking lot. And so the previous town manager had worked with town council as well as the abutting property owners to create these easement agreements that would ultimately result in the town having ownership of the alleyway in between 32 and 34, while giving up some of our access that sort of goes along the back of that building. And so in 2016, the town meeting approved us moving forward with that. And we have this one remaining agreement with one of the property owners, which was executed recently. So thank you very much to Mr. Lundgren. And so we're asking that the board approve that tonight. And then I know there's been discussion in the past about how we might use that alley. This would allow us to move forward with with use of that alley. We don't have a plan yet, but we would have those rights once it gets recorded.
It's a long time coming on this one. Any questions for Christy on that, or if not, I'd look for a motion.
Just very excited that we're here. I feel like it was one of the first topics when I became a select board member a long time ago, and when I had to color my hair less. So yes, I'm very excited about this.
At least you got hair.
Yeah, I had more hair then too.
I had more hair, right? I actually, that too.
I'll move pursuant to the vote taken under Article 22 of October 17th, 2016, town meeting to enter into an agreement with Edward J. Lundgren Jr. LLC for the conveyance and acquisition of rights and easements relating to the town hall parking area and alleyway.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? It's 5-0, 5 being present. I do echo again the Mr. Lundgren's final acceptance of this. It's nice to have that completed. Okay, moving forward. Next agenda item, execution of collective bargaining agreements between the town and the following unions: Service Employees International Union, Local 888, sorry, which is our clerical union; the Westborough Police Supervisors Association; the National Association of Governmental Employees, Local 01-023, which is our dispatchers; and finally, the Westborough Professional Firefighters Association. Christy or Kim?
So as you
Sorry,
know,
Kim. I
That's
should have
okay.
gone to you first.
The town, over the past several months, has concluded negotiations with each of these unions. At that point, the board in executive session has approved memoranda of agreement with each of those unions. In previous public open session meetings, you have provided the highlights of each of those memoranda, and now we are incorporating all of the terms contained in those into the actual collective bargaining agreement to have the full contract in place. So the MOA being agreed to is really the key hurdle, and now we are just pulling all of that into the contract. So you're being asked tonight to approve and execute each of the 4 contracts. They were included in your packet. When those are fully executed, the union will also sign. We do post those on the town's website, so all of the terms and conditions are available for public viewing.
Great. And these are all ones, as you mentioned, in the memo of agreement that has been communicated out in public as well. Any questions?
Should we do these individually or?
That was my question,
bulk?
but I guess I shouldn't raise my hand.
Yeah.
I have to recuse
Sorry,
myself.
raise your hand.
Jumping,
Yeah.
Christy.
I don't think we have to do them individually, but we can,
No, I don't believe you have to.
since we've already done
Exactly.
votes on individually
I'll,
already.
can I make a motion?
You can make a motion.
Go for it.
You sure?
Positive, go.
I move to approve and execute collective bargaining agreements as presented with each of the following unions: Service Employees International Union, Local 888, the Clerical Union, for the period fiscal year 26 to fiscal year 28; Westborough Police Supervisor Association for the period fiscal year 26 to fiscal year 28; National Association of Governmental Employees, Local 01-023, Dispatchers Union for the period fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 28; and the Westborough Professional Firefighters Association for the period fiscal year 24 to fiscal year 26.
Second?
Point of order, Ian?
Yes.
I'm going to recuse myself from this vote as a result of my wife being a member of the clerical union.
Great. Thank you, Patrick. And just to be clear, as that was, so folks don't think we misread it, that last one, professional firefighters, just because of the timing of settling the contract, that is correct, that's fiscal year 24 to fiscal year 26. So
Correct.
just reiterating it for the public in case folks thought we misstated it. Okay, any questions or comments? Not all those in favor? That's 4-0 with 1 recusal. Thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 10, update of alternative public meeting posting method. So this is regarded to our website posting.
Yeah, this is really housekeeping. When I had reached out to the state related to the posting place for the Metro West Regional Emergency Communication Center district postings. I noted that our posting place is still our old web address, which is fine because it's still, if you type that in, it still
forwards,
comes
yeah.
to this website. But I thought for housekeeping, we should take that vote and update that website. So changing it from that town.westborough.ma.us to the westboroughma.gov.
Want to make a motion?
Move pursuant to 940 CRM 29.032, designate www.westboroughma.gov as the alternative posting method for the town of Westborough.
Great. I think you said CRM, but I think you meant CMR.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Just like
I'll second
CMR,
that.
Thank you. As
Okay.
amended.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any comments, questions? If not, all those in favor? It's 5-0, 5 being present. Thank you. Okay. Next, town manager's report, item 11. You ready?
Yep. So the select board, as you mentioned earlier, had your retreat on Friday, April 4th. During that time, the select board received an update on fiscal 25 goals and also set goals for the board and town manager for the next fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2025. And that information can be found on the website. There's a link in my report that goes to the board goals. There's also a separate page that points to the town manager goals. The board also chose liaisons to their appointed committees and representatives to committees to which the board has a seat.
Can I just a question on that? So those where we have a seat, has that information been sent to the town clerk for?
Celia was working on it today. I don't know if it's complete yet.
Okay, if we can just be known so we can go and get sworn in.
Yep.
Sorry, we don't need to vote on ourselves, do we?
You did
We
at
did
the
it.
retreat.
Oh, we did it.
Yeah.
We did
Yep.
that at the meeting. Yeah.
But we do, for those that have seats, we do need to get sworn in.
Yep.
And Christy, I think just on that, we were gonna post the seats and liaisons somewhere on the select board page.
I thought we were putting it on the individual committee pages.
Oh,
which
whatever-
is
whatever's
That's
easier.
what I asked Celia to do, so
Okay,
I know she's
perfect.
working on
That's
that
great.
also.
That's excellent. Thanks.
Related to the community center, the recreation and senior center staff have been busy running programs at the community center for residents of all ages. This summer, due to other activities going on at the Westborough schools, the recreation department will be hosting their summer camp at the community center.
That's great.
The treasurer collector's office, as you know, the part-time position in the treasurer collector's office will remain vacant due to the need for budget reductions in fiscal 26. So that position has been vacant for I think a month now. So beginning next week, the treasurer collector's office will be closed to the public on Mondays. The office will remain consistent with town hall hours Tuesday through Friday, and then the public will continue to have round-the-clock access to online payment options through our website. I think we actually saw a lot of folks move to the online during COVID and have stayed with that, but we'll be closed to the public on Mondays for that office. The development team meetings, which I mentioned previously, is a group that I've asked to come together, which would be the chairs of both the select board and planning board, as well as myself, the director of planning, community development director, and public works director. And this is really modeled after what we currently do with our finance team, our monthly meetings, which also make up a combination of staff and chairs of boards. So we're looking forward to that starting this month. And then we have a list of all of the select board meetings that are upcoming. Our next meeting is a remote executive session at 8 a.m. on this Thursday. And then in department updates, the Department of Public Health has conducted its annual relicensing of the fire department's EMS division. This includes an evaluation of the fleet, all medical equipment and pharmaceuticals, as well as administrative compliance with state and federal regulations. The department received no critical deficiencies and did receive 4 recommendations for policy and documentation improvement. They've also received notification from Amazon Robotics that they'll be receiving a donation of $30,000 to support the advancement of fire EMS in Westborough. Under sustainability, there are several projects that they've been working on. So the Hastings LED lighting project has completed, the EV charging feasibility study, which was funded by a grant, that has been kicked off and is underway. The Green Communities grant to schedule for improvements at Town Hall and Forbes, Those site visits were completed, so we did receive those grants, and the site visit was completed. And then the environmental action fair was successfully executed about a week ago. That's my report.
Great, thank you, Christy. Okay, next on the agenda is item 12, a request to approve the meeting minutes of March 6, 2025.
I just had one change on this. Towards, I'm not sure which, I guess it's page 3, under petition warrant articles, Article 20. Actually, maybe it's further down. It was on the petition warrant articles. I just need to find it. Oh, I'm sorry. It's actually page 6 under votes of support, citizens petition. Select board member Marshall moved to recommend that this article at town meeting. And I just didn't know what the motion was. Was it to defeat or?
I actually didn't.
Or to vote on that. I don't really know.
I wasn't. Where are you? I'm sorry.
Page 6.
Page 6 of the document. Oops,
Page
down.
6
Yep.
under citizens petition, Article 27.
Oh.
I just don't know what the motion was.
I think it was that the articles are defeated.
Are defeated. Yeah.
But to that point, then the one below it should say Articles 28 through 32.
Right. Do we have to go back and look? Do we just need to look at that? That was a recorded meeting because it was remote.
Yeah, why don't we go and ask Celia just to confirm, if
Yeah.
we could, those votes of support for the citizen petition articles and bring it back to our next meeting for approval.
Right.
Sorry, guys.
No,
good
this is a great catch.
Yeah, good
Don't
catch.
feel sorry.
And I just had one typographical error I think we should fix. Under on page 2 at the very top, swimming pool repair, and it should say pool pack rooftop unit.
Not pool pack. We will ask Celia to update
Celia
that.
did that on purpose.
To see if we got it.
So see.
Great. Perfect. So with those comments, we will not look for a motion here, and we'll take this on our next agenda. Okay. Next, issues and correspondence of the select board. I will start on my far left. So Patrick, you're first.
Sure. So just I guess 2 things. I attended this past weekend the coffee with Representative McGovern. It was an incredible opportunity to hear him speak and also to hear the concerns of the residents in the community in regards to the, for lack of a better word, chaos that's happening in our federal government right now. I really appreciate him coming and speaking to us. There were many heartwarming stories and tremendous concerns from families on the impact of our town. I did ask Rep. McGovern if there was any opportunity for, both at a federal level and a state level, if there was any opportunity for perhaps info sessions for municipalities to better understand what information they can share with us as far as predicting what's happening, right? Like, for example, in Sustainable Westborough, a lot of people are asking, how does this impact, green grants and things like that as we're looking at them. So he was interested in that. Don't know if that'll go anywhere, but just share that with you all. I will also just share that I did take a few minutes and I did want to thank a state senator, Cory Booker, for his 25-hour speech. It was a historic display and physical act of stamina, of leadership that was transcendent of politics, and I encourage all to watch his closing remarks. I would also just share, since Mrs. Armini is here in the audience, due to her comments in regards to the BWALT meeting that was held, and a resident having disparaging remarks or whatnot in regards to our harassment plan. I read our harassment plan. I would just share as an informational piece for her, you should also read the harassment plan. I don't believe that your accusations rise to what was stated in that meeting. I did watch it, and I would just encourage you to read this this document. That's it.
Can I just speak to what Patrick said? The first thing that you said, the MMA and the Attorney General are holding a biweekly briefing on federal actions starting tomorrow. So we'll be attending those just to
That's for the MMA?
keep ourselves up to date. Yep.
That's great to hear.
Yep.
Thank you for sharing that. Is that something, do you have to be, are board members?
Let me double check. If you didn't get it, I'm not really sure, but let
Okay.
me just double check.
I'll check
'Cause
to see
I don't
if-
know if there's I remember during COVID there was like a limit to how many they could have, but I can confirm.
Okay.
And minimally I can send you along what I learn.
Okay, yep.
But I'll check on that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I guess
No.
we're coming this way?
No, you're not.
Oh, okay.
Are you sure you want me to go next?
Yes, Mark, please go next.
Because I have a whole bunch again.
Well, then no one else will have anything to say.
And then we'll be done. Yeah.
All right, so Saturday is the Repair Cafe at the library from 9 to 12. That's an annual event that everyone should take advantage of at some point. Saturday is also the Community Shred Day at the Central One Federal Credit Union from 9 to 12. If anybody needs documents shredded, I think there's probably a limit on how much you can bring, Pat. So Saturday is also a busy day because it's the free Veterans Breakfast from at 9:30 at the Senior Center, and all veterans are welcome. We all got an invite to that. I plan to attend pending Jenny's approval. I haven't talked to her about it.
She put her,
No, I put her on the spot in the public, so now I should be able to go.
Now
right?
you're definitely not going.
Let's see. Our next meeting's not till the 29th, so there's a lot on this list. Sorry. Keeping in line with the Veterans Advisory Board is looking for assistance to place flags on veterans' graves on May 3rd, which I know is after the 29th, but you can sign up now to help them place flags at St. Luke's, Pine Grove, Midland, and Memorial Cemeteries. Let's see, on April 25th, Westborough Connects will be transforming picnic tables into turquoise tables, which will be placed at various locations, and it's a local initiative to connect neighbors and community members. The Public Art Committee is looking for members. If anyone's interested in serving on the Public Art Committee, please go to the town website. On April 17th, the Cultural Council is sponsoring Journey Through the Roots of Music at 6:30 p.m. in the Great Hall across the street. That is explore the origins of the blues, rock, and country music in a concert with John Waterman. We have on April 23rd, the Better Together Film Festival event sponsored by Westborough Connects. I would go to their website for more interest. On April 25th, a celebratory tree will be planted at Story Field, and a special proclamation in honor of Arbor Day will be read aloud at 12:30. And hopefully there'll be some mention of Earl, but I don't know that for sure. I guess just because it's at Story Field, I don't know. But, I forgot. This Thursday, April 10th, is a free CPR class at the Westborough Fire Department. If anybody is interested in mastering CPR, I think it's a valuable skill. And last but not least, in fact, possibly the most important, is the Westborough Education Foundation is celebrating Teacher Appreciation Week by growing a gratitude garden. And you can purchase flowers by May 3rd to honor your favorite or not so favorite or all teachers. I think it's a valuable effort. I think that's everything.
My wife appreciates you saying that. Not as a teacher. John?
I'll go next.
Yep.
All right. Library Building Committee met earlier today. So targets for the move. right now, the thought is the library, the last day the library would be open would be May 14th. And then moving over to the community center, and that will probably be take a couple weeks. So no target date yet on when it would open in the community center, but right now target is last day open and it's in the library is May 14th. So and looking forward to getting started.
That's awesome.
So, thank
Great
you.
news. That's it?
Yep. That's
Perfect. Shelby.
Sure.
Say I didn't forget you.
Mark took home.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Mine too.
Well, and I think, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of yours are coming from the Westborough Connects newsletter?
Yeah,
So-
some of them are, yeah.
Yeah, so if folks are looking for some of those civic things, I would just point you to the Westborough Connects newsletters. And if you haven't signed up, do so.
Shelby
It's
wants
free.
me to stop.
No, it's a lot, and there is a lot there. So I appreciate you bringing those forward. Speaking of calendars, I do want to acknowledge, and it was here, although I was trying to look for a specific example and I can't find it right now. On the Westborough Town website, it seems like we were showing maybe some of the activities happening over at the community center. I don't think I imagined that. If I did, it was great. Now I can't find them. So I think that's something maybe we've talked about, but now I can't. I remember seeing some. So I was saying kudos to Jen for doing it, and now I can't find examples of it. So I realized that I did not give an update to this board on my last Bagels with the Board event. It was right before town meeting, so all the questions were about town meeting. There were some suggestions on things they wanted to see on the slides. I had shared that with Christy in a timely manner. That's not why those slides were great, but they no, but they were all about town meeting questions, some specific warrant questions, and lots of questions about the schools. And I do have a question that was brought to my attention from a resident, and with respect to the status of the Explorer post, I would learn that that's no longer operating. Is that true? That's what someone shared back with me. Not the old Explorer post, but through the fire department.
That's correct. They didn't do the program this year. My understanding, it was based on interest, but I don't know if anyone has any other information.
Okay. All right.
I know that they came to us last year and it was successful, but
Yeah.
I do know that it didn't happen this year.
Okay. And if I missed that, because I sent them to the fire department, I was all excited and I didn't realize that. So, okay. If there are members who are interested in the community, how would they raise that request?
I would recommend that they reach out to Chief Purcell.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
You can get them connected.
Thank you. That's going to be all for tonight. Yep.
Okay. Just a few quick things for me. The finance team met this past Monday. I did bring up discussions of a couple of things that we discussed at or goals that we set at our Friday retreat. Notably just introducing the school department, the plan to kind of look to move forward with discussions on sharing of responsibilities and hopefully cost savings. But a good kickoff to that discussion, communicated that through the finance team. The other big piece that we did talk about was, and I think we talked about this retreat as well, is a review of kicking off the review of data dashboard communities, and had discussions on that. Information was shared by Christy in terms of ways for us to potentially look at how to identify those data dashboard communities and leveraging what other towns may be doing. So more discussions will be occurring on that, but those are kind of the big things there. Last night I did attend my first Trustees of Soldiers Memorial meeting. Just a couple of updates there. They did vote to move forward with the cleaning and rebronzing of the monuments that I call it the Vinnie Lee area at the corner of School Street. But there's actually 2 monuments there, but they'll be cleaning those, and those will be done before Labor Day. So that will be kicked off. We did talk about some additional cleanings that need to be done on other monuments, but those will be discussed at a later meeting. They also did vote on purchasing some new flags, especially replenishing the inventory of the handheld flags for the upcoming Memorial Day parade, which leads me into just a reminder that we received a letter, and many organizations have, that the Veterans Advisory Board is really looking to trying to make Memorial Day parade bigger and better, and inviting as many organizations, community groups, et cetera, to attend, encouraging folks to perhaps even come up with floats, but again, really a request to the entire community. It's a great tradition, as we know, here in town for Memorial Day, and also look for my fellow select board members, for those that are around in town that day, to participate as well. And then the final thing is, we talked about this last meeting, but this past Saturday, the Boy Scout Troop 100 held their senior citizen dinner, free dinner for the seniors at the senior center. Very successful, well attended, and great compliments came from the seniors that attended of really the work of the young men that were there. So just again, thank you to Boy Scout Troop 100 for the work they did to provide that free dinner and a chance for conversation to our seniors.
I think we forgot one, which is the EDC Awards event coming up on Friday, April 25th, 8 a.m. to 9:30, to recognize businesses across town for various achievements.
That's a good one.
So-
How did I miss that?
And that's at the municipal building. Right.
Great hall.
Great hall, sorry. Yeah,
Great.
What time is it?
8 a.m.
And surprising to everybody, we have no need to go into executive session this evening, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Shocking.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? It's 5-0. Thank you again for Westborough TV, as always, for filming us this evening and all their technical help.